Okay, so I'm live. I'm a little early. That's okay. Wait for people to roll in. Okay, sorry. Little doggo demands to be up here. So if you are rewatching this, I am live on Instagram right now. You might be watching from YouTube or Facebook. Please know that Instagram doesn't save the comment thread anymore on its live videos. So while I am definitely crazy, I'm not talking to myself. What I'm doing today is I'm doing a live herbal Q&A where I'm just kind of hanging out with you in my chair in my living room. And yesterday people submitted a ton of questions. And I'm answering those questions. I probably won't be jumping into the comment section to answer questions. I mean, there'll be some back and forth, but I'm going to try to keep my magpie brain focused. Please know that this is just me and you having a discussion. Like if we were sitting across, a table from each other, having a cup of tea, and you were like, hey, I've got this going on. What do you think about that? I'd be like, if I was in that situation versus medical advice, always talk to your doctor before you start or stop any type of regime, herbal or otherwise, anything like that. And really just think of my answers as like a step off point for you to research on, right? Like never take anybody's word as gospel, please, not even my own. But what I'm doing is I'm opening a door for you to start researching and be like, wow, that might be something that I think might work for my body. And when we research the information that people give us, it helps us be more in control of our health and we're less likely to hurt ourselves. So those are the things that I have to say. I'm going to probably try to keep it to an hour for my own physical and mental health boundaries. And lastly, I don't answer DMs or private messages because there's you guys are legion, there's thousands of you and I'm one person. And so the answer I give is the answer I give. There won't be follow-up information or anything like that. Again, this is so you can start going out there and doing a little bit of research on your own about things like that. And I probably won't be answering the plethora of questions that get dropped into the comment section wherever I post this to. So don't take it personally, just respect boundaries, energy boundaries. If I answer your questions all day long, I won't exist for much longer. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is getting an eyelash out of my eye. I click on this little question box here, and oh boy, questions from stories. I hate that it doesn't. All right, so they changed that. Usually I can see the box, but now it's just everyone watching will see it on screen. Okay, so I should be able to, can you see this now? I've only done this once before, and they've changed it. Instagram has been changing so many things lately that I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna click on this one. Okay, oh, it went away. I wanted to answer that one. I don't do Twitch. I know a lot of people are check out. Okay, I want to answer that question. Okay, this question says, is it okay to take multiple types of tinctures at once? Does doing this decrease potency? So, doesn't decrease, it went away. It doesn't decrease potency. What it does is, okay, so the answer is yes and no. I don't want you to take a bunch of tinctures at once until you are accustomed to each and every tincture, right? Because we don't know, what a reaction will be. If we take, let's say, 2 or 3 tinctures and we have a reaction, whether that's a good reaction or a bad reaction, maybe something gave us diarrhea, or maybe we feel really great. The problem is we don't know which one of those 3 caused it, right? And so if it's a bad reaction, you're like, okay, now I gotta get brave and take all 3 of these again individually to see which one caused the diarrhea. And do you really want to do that? Typically you won't. You're more likely to subconsciously and even consciously avoid all of those herbs now. So what I say is usually give your body about a week, at least 5 to 7 days of taking a tincture by itself individually to see how it reacts in your body. And then you can start to get to know another one, and then when you know how those all react within you, you can slowly start taking tinctures at the same time. But sometimes when we take tinctures at the same time, we might have a reaction that we wouldn't have had otherwise, right? So you're like, oh, I can take California poppy and let's say just off the top of my head, milky oats together at the same time, and I feel just I individually, and I feel fine. But when I put them together, like I just felt kind of gross or nauseated. It doesn't mean that you can't use either or of those. It just means that you're like, well, today I'm just going to stick with this one or this one, right? And then sometimes even if you're like, well, I took all these tinctures and they made me feel great. And that's good, but you're also kind of holding yourself hostage and not knowing which one makes you feel good. In the way, like, you notice that, like, I only, like, use and promote, like, single herb tinctures. Like, if you get a catnip tincture from me, it just has catnip in it, right? There's not, like, a kitchen sink in there. A lot of herbalists like to make up formulas. A couple things go on there. First of all, you're kind of beholden to them because you'll never be able to reproduce the formula that made you feel good or helped you in some way. You might try, but it might never be the same. Plus, your body probably didn't need all of the herbs in there. What if it was just the one herb that was making you feel good, and you're taking a lot of herbs consistently, like a big kitchen sink amount? You might be stressing your system out by forcing an organ to function in one way or this way, or just, so it's like, you might not need all three of those to feel good, right? And if you know which one made you feel that way, then you can just have that one, and then you have the power to say, I'm going to make a milky oats tincture on my own because I know that's what helped me, and you're not, like, beholden to purchase from somebody. So that's that question. So let me tap on questions again. I wish it would, like, swipe them away once I answered. Okay. So this person asked, and I saw it earlier before I jumped on. Let me click on this. They tried to use coconut oil as a carrier oil to make an herbal infusion. That's where you were putting herbs in a jar and putting oil over top of it of some kind and waiting for a long time, you know, usually 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, depending on what you're making, to extract the herbal properties into the oil, right? That oil you would turn into a body oil or salve. You cannot use coconut oil unless you keep it warm the whole time. You have to keep it warm the whole time or it'll go solid on you. Now you can use, I'm so bad with abbreviations. It's either MTC or MCT coconut oil. It's like fractionated and it doesn't go room temperature. I mean, it doesn't go hard at room temperature. But that stuff is crazy expensive. So I would probably say you gotta build yourself a little heat box. I have a video of that here on my IGTV. It's pretty simple. It's just like a seed heating mat inside of some sort of Tupperware box. Put it in there. It keeps it warm enough that it'll stop the coconut oil from going solid. Okay, so let me check another one. I wish it did it like last time. Usually it like shows me like a bunch of boxes. Now I just have to scroll. And it's not, this one's funny. And it's not removing them as I answer them, which is a little harder. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that one because that person's an asshole. So here's a good question. Have I used red elderberry? I haven't because it doesn't grow around here, but she has a really long history of being used. However, she does have higher glycogen levels, which is like a precursor to cyanide. Don't freak out. All the elderberries have that. Every apple you've ever eaten has it in it. It doesn't actually have cyanide in it. It's that if you eat something like this consistently and long enough, and I mean like you're not taking a break because your body does like exit it out of you and it builds up, eventually it can convert to cyanide, but like you would have to eat so much that you'd arguably get pretty sick before you could eat enough for that to happen, right? And cooking destroys it. That's why, like, when you get, like, apple juice at the store, you know they're not taking, like, the seeds out of that, right? Or any of that stuff. They're just smashing it all. But then when they pasteurize it, or they bring it up to, like, some sort of level of temperature, it basically kills off those properties that we're concerned about. Okay. So, I'm going to put a boundary out here. And again, people who are rewatching, you're not seeing the comment section. I'd really ask people to be mindful about not just throwing out, like if somebody here said, what's good for morning sickness? They're nauseated all day. And then somebody just said peppermint. So mints can cause abortions. And so please don't drink a bunch of peppermint tea while you're pregnant. And that is why I say, like, be mindful of giving, like, straight up, like, advice in the comment section like that. Because it's like, you just have to be careful. You know, and I know that I'm doing that here, but it's like, I don't want somebody to be like, oh, you know, I'm going to drink a bunch of peppermint tea because I saw that. And not to say that the other person wouldn't choose to be like, I'm not going to do that. But just be mindful of like what you're throwing out there, because we don't want to hurt somebody. So yes, please do not drink peppermint tea in excess or much at all. If you're pregnant and have morning sickness, I would consider looking at making sure that you have enough small amounts of protein throughout the day. Okay, so let me jump into this questions section again. It looks like I'm having to, I'm gonna have to delete stuff as I answer them. I don't like that, Instagram. I wish that it would just, usually it grays a box out once I've answered it. Okay, so here's a question. This person asked, Echinacea tincture, blooms or roots or both? Is it okay to use dried plant tincture for wound care? So I'll throw that up there, even though it makes it go away instantly. So Echinacea is one of those things where, like, she does have a little bit of herbal properties in her blooms, but not so much. And I usually, if I'm going to use the blooms, I would use them more of a tea, or make sure that they are fresh when I'm making a tincture, because blooms are primarily water-based. So, like, think about it. A petal of something is like 80% water or so. Like, so when it dries, it loses a lot of its water-soluble properties. I am pretty stringent about using fresh plant matter whenever possible, because we don't want to miss out on those water-soluble properties. But where I am willing to begrudgingly bend on not having to have access to fresh plant matter to make a tincture is with roots, roots, berries, and mushrooms, honestly, because particularly with roots and berries and polypore mushrooms that are in the wood variety, you know, they're really hard. Roots and berries are engineered to hold on to, like, their properties. Like, that's the point. Like, when you think about a root, it's really a root cellar of a plant. All summer long, when it's photosynthesizing and she's doing all these things, she's storing sugars and starches, and she's basically filling up this little root. That way, in particular, especially if it's a perennial coming back again and again, they are saving up energy so they can survive the winter. Right, that's what they eat off of. The plant's not just like dead and doing nothing under the ground when wintertime comes. They're like holding on, you know? And so when we dig that root at fall, before they've had a chance to like eat up all those sugars and starches and other properties and terpenes and all kinds of things that are in there, we have this little root cellar that holds on to that stuff really well. So you can make a tincture out of Echinacea root that's dried. And it doesn't even have to be complicated, but if you're gonna make a dried tincture, it needs to be that you're only filling the jar about halfway up with root, right? Because if the root was fresh, it would be bigger and it would fill the jar all the way up. You don't want to put too much in there. Plus, it'll expand. It can break your jar, and it might absorb too much of the alcohol, and you won't get any tincture out of it. Okay, so, all right. And just as a reminder, I'm pretty much only answering questions that were submitted through my question box for the most part, because if not, I'll be here for like 10 hours. But I think you have the capacity to answer questions or to ask questions through it. I'm not sure if live shows it or not. This one eyelash there, it must have been two, but no, it's hanging down now. It's like you didn't make a proper wish on your eyelash. Okay, so I have been cutting out meat and dairy in my diet for the last 2 weeks. I'm sorry to hear that. Your body really needs those healthy animal fats and proteins and things like that. And it's just a really important source for our body, and nobody needs to at me to argue it, because, it's going to bug me. You ever get one that's so bad that you're like, all right, I need an eyelash curler just so I can, like, make that one eyelash go away. Okay, so let me go to this little section right here. So this is kind of an interesting one. This person asked if I have any herb allies for tongue and cheeks that always have a burning sensation. I'll click on it. It pops up and then it goes away. I don't know. Does it stay on the screen for you guys when I, it's going to bug the hell out of me because I can see it. I almost went really close so I can look. Does it stay on the screen for you guys? Like when I pop up the question, does it stay there and you can like read it and stuff? Because it only stays for like 2.5 seconds. So Anyhow, it doesn't stay for me. I wish it would stay for me. My brain would like to read it again. So, anyhow. Burning sensation in your tongue and in your cheeks, it really depends on what's causing it. My mind goes to, how's your breathing? How's your anxiety levels? How are your stress levels? Are you like freaking out on a regular basis? A lot of people don't realize that when they're having anxiety and high levels of stress, like your body is giving you symptoms, right? You might not be in a panic attack, but like when your breathing is all fucked up and erratic and that just happens. It's not a judgment. It happens to me all the time. Your tongue can kind of go numb or burn or things like that. But it's hard to say like what herb might help with that. If I don't know what's causing it. Right, it's kind of like just swinging a bat in the dark. Now, if it's something topical, like if you're having like a topical reaction or like a histamine reaction or something like that to something that you're eating or something that you're breathing in, maybe the toothpaste that you're using, anything like that. First of all, I would try switching toothpaste just to see if that helps. But also, I would consider start making some slippery elm balls. I have a video of that here on my Instagram as well as my YouTube. It's really easy. Basically, it would help coat your mouth. And I would think that if it was something that was topical that was causing the irritation, that coating would basically kind of act like a Band-Aid layer, right, to help soothe that discomfort. And I would say that if using things even like mallow root infusion or something like that alongside the slippery elm, if you're finding that like covering it and like putting something on there that's meant to soothe it isn't helping with the sensation, it's probably something neurological, nerve ending related, breath related, right? When we breathe incorrectly and things start to feel really weird and like burny like that, it's not that, it's basically like the equivalent of if you sit on your foot too long and you stand up and it's pins and needles. It does the same thing, right? Because oxygen isn't getting there because our breathing pattern is all messed up. Okay, so let me see the next one. I'm just going to delete that because I answered it. I wish that it would just show me when I've answered stuff. I'm going to scroll way down to the bottom here. I don't know if you can see that while I'm doing it because there's a ton of them. So let's see. So here's a question. This person said, I heard you say something about not making infusions with mints that are scentless, and they want to know why. And in that case, I'm talking about infusions, like nourishing herbal infusions, like something that you're drinking internally. And if you want, and I'll still explain it, I have a very long live free class that you can go rewatch here on my IGTV or in my live replay section where I go over all in depth about what nourishing herbal infusions are, how awesome they are and support our health. And I also talk about the main reason that we don't use any plant, not just mints, that has a strong scent. Now remember, something can have a smell, but it's different than a scent, right? Like, I guess technically this grape has a smell, but not like a scent, right? When we use something that has a lot of scent, like lavender or chamomile or something in the peppermint and the mint family in general, they have that smell because they have high VOCs, volatile organic compounds. And when you use water, like long brewed infusion, which is where we're dumping like hot water, boiling water over something and letting it sit for a long time, it extracts too many of those VOCs, and it's dangerous to use those internally. So anything that has like a really high scent, you want to use that just for making a quick brewed tea. I don't typically let them go longer than 10 to 12 minutes. Like, think about, like, if you ever made yourself a cup of chamomile tea with bags and you like spaced out the tea, or you only drink half of it or whatever, or you left your bags in there for a long while, and then on the top of it, it looks like an oil slick, kind of like how a parking lot will look after it rains. What you're seeing there is the VOCs that have been extracted, and it's dangerous to drink those. Also, fun fact, essential oils are actually VOCs that the market has just renamed. They're very, very, very refined and very toxic. So using them internally is not safe at those higher levels. Excuse me. Let's see. Next question, and oh look, that one is gray for some reason. Don't know why. Don't know why. Let me scroll way down here. What would I do with an abundance of mugwort and our wormwood? Preparation. So mugwort and wormwood are two different plants. Mugwort you can sometimes use internally, like as a tincture, but in really small amounts, like really small amounts, people, because the artemisias, which are the real sage family, tend to do liver damage if you use them excessively. Like I know you can, like, traditionally, a lot of European, like, nations would use mugwort to, like, brew beer, you know, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't doing harm. A lot of people use mugwort externally, like a mugwort oil or a mugwort smudge, mugwort under your pillow, things like that can help induce vivid dreaming. It's definitely a dream-like plant, but also it can really damage your body internally. Now, wormwood, which is a different plant in the same family, different plant. She's really potent. She's really potent. In fact, it's the main ingredient that they would use in absinthe, and absinthe would cause you to, like, you can go into, like, rages from absinthe where you, like, psychotically murder people. It's pretty bad. And that's because wormwood has theogene in her, and theogene, like, literally can make you have, like, a schizophrenic psychotic break in big levels. So wormwood is another one that I only suggest using internally very sparingly. And usually it's like if you're traveling to a different country, or like you're somewhere where you know that you might get diarrhea, or you're like dealing with parasites, the rule of thumb is, like, typically you're not wanting to take more than 5 drops a day of a tincture, and you're going to be putting that tincture in just a drop, 1 drop. Like if you're having a cup of water, put 1 drop in there, right? And spread it out. Don't take them all at once. So yeah, but wormwood topically, she is pretty good for pain topically, and antifungal, as most of the artemisias are, because they're a sage, right? They're very drying. So, okay, let me see. Next question. How about, so I'm going to answer this one just to help keep people safe. This person said, I'm planning on getting off of my anxiety/depression meds, but how does that have a like? That's interesting. I'm planning on getting off my anxiety/depression meds, but don't want to do it cold turkey. Is there something I could take to help the transition with coming off of those meds? Now, just to put this out there, I was on benzodiazepines for a decade. Like, I was prescribed it because they would help me feel normal for my anxiety and all my trauma versus helping me cope with my trauma, right? And it was brutal, and the 4-year taper, or well, actually 2-year taper or so, but it took about 4 years to complete the situation, was like one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And on top of that, the hardest thing that I had to accept is that there was no magic fix. There was nothing that I could necessarily take that would make me not feel the withdrawal symptoms, that wouldn't, like, that would take it away. With that being said, you can really focus on making sure that you're eating, like, plenty of, like, healthy animal fats and lots of protein, and really working on nourishing your body. Try eating every 4 hours or so, making sure that you're getting all the macro and micronutrients that come from carbs, fats, and proteins. When our body is stressed, regardless if it's mental stress, physical stress, whatever, and these things are all different. Coming off of a medication will be stressful. You burn through your resources and your mineral reserves rapidly, really quickly. Nettle infusion helped me a lot, but I couldn't touch any Nervines, which is like if I took like a catnip tincture or something like that to calm me down, because what's going to happen inside of your brain is that most of these anxiety, depression medications are stimulating your GABA or your serotonin receptors, and it stimulates them like really rapidly, and they really flood your brain with all of these enzymes and things that make you feel good and happy, right? But when you start coming off of that and it starts ramping down, you're basically going to have to let your GABA receptors and your serotonin receptors heal, and that's painful. And the thing that I told myself again and again, these withdrawal symptoms that I'm feeling, these things that I'm going through while coming off of this, is literally a symptom of my brain healing. And it fucking blows your mind to consider that, but like, you will feel horrendous because your brain is healing itself. It's having to rewire itself. It's having to like learn new neural pathways, and you're just having to work on your neuroplasticity. With that being said, I would probably feel okay after about 6 months of tapering. starting to work with lion's mane mushroom. Not necessarily a nervine, it just really helps your brain. And then you might also consider rosemary when you're a little further down the line, because it increases blood flow to your brain, and that will just kind of help your brain like have the resources it needs to heal itself. It took me a lot to come off of it, and it's hard. But that plus like facing like all of my own traumas and pains and things like that, it saved my life. It absolutely saved my life. It changed my life. It's the reason that I'm not like living in a shack, shit in a bucket anymore. Like, you know, like really, I got myself off of disability. I built what we have here. And it takes time and patience with yourself. Yeah, and tapering is really important. I would suggest looking into liquid titration. I would suggest, if you're on benzodiazepines in particular, looking into Ashton's manual, getting onto the Benzo Buddies forum, and understand that most U.S. doctors, as well as most in the EU and stuff like that, are not really aware of like the dangers that exist with these pharmaceuticals. And so they might be like, oh, you can be off of this in 3 months. Don't go that fast. Go so much slower than that. If you have the resource and the capacity to continue filling prescriptions to go slower, go slower. Okay, let me go to another question. So just to put this in perspective, I don't even know if it's perspective. I just want to share something. Yesterday I came in the house and I was like, oh, a kid burnt something cooking. And the smell was really fucking with my sensory stuff and my neurodiversity, so I was like, I have to open the windows. But where I'm at in Northeast Oregon, it's starting to get cold, which means it's fly season, which is when they really want to get in the house. And I was like, but I have to open these windows, and now I'm like being attacked by flies. I have like all the traps up to catch them, but I'm like, go away. And they're the aggressive flies that don't like, they're not afraid of you. They will land on you and try to like bang on your face. It's a situation. Okay, so let me scroll way down. I know there's so many questions here. I really wish they would bring back the boxes side by side. All right. So this one says, any tips on herbs for symptoms of tingling, numb, and burning extremities? I am low in vitamin B's and ferritin, which is a type of iron, for those who don't know what ferritin is. Or it's a precursor to, it's something that they measure in your blood to see if you have enough iron. So if you are low in vitamin B's, the first thing that I would ask you, and I know a lot of this hasn't been herbal remedy stuff, but sometimes they're just like, that's not going to fix anything. Like, have you been screened for the MTHFR, also known as the motherfucker gene mutation? 40% of the population has it. And if you have that mutation, then your body literally can't methylate vitamin B's into what you need. You can't get it, so you need pre-methylated vitamin B's. But I don't know if I am a motherfucker. My husband's a double motherfucker. My kids are too. I've never had it cause like tingling sensations or things like that. I would be interested in what like is going on in your cardiovascular symptom. I would be curious if you've ever checked your O2 levels, like what your oxygen saturation is. And if you kind of do that and it's not looking great, an herb that might be good for you to work with would be hawthorn in all of her forms, like hawthorn berry and leaf infusion, hawthorn tincture, hawthorn tea, hawthorn, and she's in the apple family, so she's pretty benign and safe for most people to use daily, and she just supports all aspects of our cardiovascular health, and that includes proper circulation. Okay, so let's see what the next question is. I'm trying to keep my brain reined in, and so I'm trying to like answer a little quicker so I can answer more than like 5 questions in an hour. So this person says, is it safe to use St. John's wort topically / externally if you can't take internally because of medications? Yes. You would have to be taking like full on, like head to toe, soaking in a vat of like St. John's wort oil for enough to soak for it to stimulate your liver. And I'll just put this out there. St. John's wort, other than SSRI medications for the most part, is not interacting with your medication. What St. John's wort does is it really stimulates your liver function, And medications have these things called half-lives. That means like how long does a medication stay in your system, right? Like if you take a pill, is this pill engineered like blood pressure to be in your system all day long until tomorrow, blah, 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 things like that. Well, when you start taking St. John's wort internally and your liver function starts to kick up, and your liver, your blood is always passing through your liver isn't a filter, your liver isn't dirty, but what it does do is when something like a toxin comes through, whether it's from a natural source or a medication that you're taking, it converts it. Well, not converts it, it like diverts it. It diverts it to you're either going to poop it out or you're going to piss it out for the most part. And so what happens is with your liver going faster, if you're taking these medications that are supposed to be in your system, they get pushed out before they are, and then it can cause problems. Like opioids are a good one. It can cause withdrawals. Benzos are, it can cause withdrawals. Birth control, although that's more hormone related, it can still interfere with it. Now, the one that it does interact with internally is with SSRIs, because they kick up serotonin levels in your body. And since St. John's wort also simulates serotonin release, you can get serotonin syndrome, which is not fun. But yeah, topically and externally, it's fine to use St. John's wort, even if you can't use it internally because of medication that you're on. So let's see. Let me go to the wheel of questions. I just do that and I swipe up. I don't know. You probably just see it like when I put it on the screen, but right now I can only see like the top of my head, and I'm just scrolling through questions. So this one, again, isn't necessarily an herbal remedy, but when I see these, I've got to answer them. So somebody asked for remedies to help with weight loss. Can't lose no matter the diet, exercise plan, try all the time. So, fun fact, if you're not eating enough, like healthy foods, like, and you're stressing your system out by like not eating and like constantly exercising and like putting all this stress on your metabolism and your overall system, your body's gonna hold on to fat, because it's like, oh my God, we're starving. And people like the calorie in, calorie out thing is bullshit. Your system needs to feel safe. It needs to feel safe enough to be able to burn those reserves, right? So I would suggest looking into the pro-metabolic. I don't want to say pro-metabolic diet, because it's not a diet, it's eating. It's learning how to pair foods and help your whole system feel safe. And just also, like, a lot of people that are in the pro-metabolic realm do a lot of like weight training. And that's not like cardio. You're not pushing your body. You're helping your body build muscle, which by proxy, eventually your body will have to burn fat to sustain that muscle, because muscle mass takes a lot of energy to like keep on. I've been working out. I have. I'm eating pro-metabolic. It helped me personally gain weight. That's because my metabolism went the other way, and it was just like, we will burn all the fat, and it's been pretty amazing. And I'm like, I've never been able to build muscle in my life, and like in the past 4 months, I've been like, be careful, husband. And it's crazy. It's been really fantastic. So, but I would definitely check that out. Oh, so somebody says there's a question button. If we click on it, we can see all the questions and even like them. That's funny. Yeah, pro-metabolic is fantastic. It has been a huge factor in my healing from my like level 3 HPA dysfunction, axis dysfunction burnout, and my concussion, and like just working my body into the ground. It's been really amazing. So, okay. So let me, so you can see all these things. So somebody just asked if I can recommend anything for Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a hard one. Currently, my mother-in-law, who's only in her 50s, is like, it just hit her like a wall, and to the point that she's already in residential care. It's been hard to watch. In all honesty, once Alzheimer's has set in, we can do supportive things like lion's mane, and lion's mane mushroom is a massive one. Making sure that we're eating enough healthy animal fats so our brain has the capacity to function. Your brain needs fats, and the best bioavailable fats come from animal fats. Make sure it's high quality. I'm not telling you to go out and like support feedlots or anything that I'm like, find some grass-fed, local, lard, butter, tallow, cheeses, just healthy things, and that's supporting like the ethical treatment of animals and stuff like that. But also with the rosemary, it's really good at helping support blood flow. But just so you know, and of course the lion's mane. is really amazing for like neurological repair and things like that. What you do now in your 20s and 30s, how you treat your body now and how you feed it now, there's a huge correlation to how like your odds of Alzheimer's when you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s. Like what you do now jurisdicts your health that far down the road. And we live in such an instant, like, live in the now society that, like, we're forever young, right? We don't think about the ramifications of, like, what we're doing to our body now in relation to how that will affect us, like, even, like, from an Alzheimer's or even a dementia standpoint down the road. Some of it can be inherited, although most people say that dementia is more likely inherited than Alzheimer's. But yeah, so I also, medication is a big factor. I was on benzos for a decade. My risk for Alzheimer's and dementia, did you know that like first of all, the manufacturers of benzodiazepines do not recommend that you use them long term. You're not really used to use more than like 2 or 3 doses in like a 72-hour period. Doctors prescribe this for daily use for decades. And even the pamphlet in it says, don't do that. They don't care. They just tell you to take them because it's easier than helping you deal with trauma or facing anything. It's just a Band-Aid, right? But their long-term use, so many studies have shown that they increase the odds of Alzheimer's and dementia by 30 to 45%. So for me, what I'm doing right now might literally be the difference of like, do I end up with like advanced Alzheimer's in my 50s? Right? So like me and lion's mane mushroom are like best friends. I eat all the animal fats. I'm not afraid of cholesterol because our body and our brain needs it. Right? And I'm just like doing all the things to try to save myself from when I was lied to about taking a pill that would save me. Right? So yeah, that's a big one for me. So let me scroll up. Oh, that's weird. Now it's showing it half gray. I think it's like, I don't know, they're like showing, I don't know, it's weird. So let me go way, way down to the bottom here when people first started submitting questions yesterday, because I put the question box up yesterday, and I want to make sure that I'm answering some of those questions too. It just fucking looped around. It's like, you don't get to do that. Oh, maybe those are the questions that I did already answer. It kicks them. Oh, answered questions. There's an answered questions section. Yay, I learned something. Please boop the dog. That's not gonna hurt my Sally. Okay, so let's see. I answered that one already. I bought a chunk of land and there is nettle and mullein. Can I transplant mullein first and second year plants? Mullein, she digs deep, man. Her roots are like, to get a full root out of, especially a second year, you can't transplant because she's done for. She's not going to handle the shock well. You might be able to do the first year plant if you dig wide and deep and pick the ones that are smaller, right? The bigger this first year plant, because mulleins are biannuals, so like are biperennials. Someone will correct me. They take 2 years to grow and then they die. So the first year ones, they don't create a bloom stalk. They just stay like little rosettes on the ground. If you go after the smaller ones and dig wide and deep and get most of that taproot, she'll probably survive. And if you do it during the wintertime, they typically stay green. They might be buried under snow, but if you do it during the wintertime, which would be even harder because the ground is frozen, she's less likely to be shocked and just continue growing because she's already asleep, right? Nettle, you could try. Their roots tend to grow in mats, so you'd probably kill some, but in the spring what you could do is dig wide, and then they're not super deep, they're maybe about that deep, and then down, and then move the whole clump, right? And then eventually that seed will just spread on their own, but pay attention to where it's growing and why it's growing there on your property. You might transplant to somewhere that it doesn't like, so try to kind of match the climate, right? Like mullein usually likes kind of drier, rockier areas, like disturbed areas, and then nettle is all about kind of like dappled shade and somewhere that's nice and moist. Okay, so let me answer another question. I appreciate that it's like, oh, there's just answered questions on the bottom. So this person said their baby has a few perpetually dry and rashy spots on his skin, and it's not eczema. Any suggestions? So I would consider finding something that has tallow in it, like a tallow type balm, maybe even just using tallow. Be mindful though, it's very hard to find herbalists these days that aren't just putting essential oils in some oil and calling it an herbal salve. And I don't want you putting essential oils on your baby. I don't even want you to put them on yourself, to be honest. But I would be really mindful to find something that doesn't have essential oils in it. Also, maybe like a nice calendula body oil that's made out of real calendula. Anything that's going to help with that, like that dryness and irritation. But I like tallow because it comes from a red meat animal. Usually it's from cattle. Fun fact, you are a red meat animal. We don't like to think about that, but we are. And so our body recognizes the fat and it soaks it in really quickly. And so it's just really fantastic for helping heal up those little bits of irritation. Let me get a drink here. All right. Next question. And I'm just scrolling away. Here's a good one. This person asked, does Oregon grape work for psoriasis when taken as a tincture or only when applied topically? Well, I'd say yes and no, because our skin is the biggest organ we have, and it's also like the biggest indicator that our body isn't happy. So usually when our body isn't happy and our skin isn't happy, it's maybe our liver isn't happy, right? Because our liver is what's moving toxins out, it's what's putting nutrition into our blood and things like that. And Oregon grape is really great at supporting natural liver function and liver health and digestive health. And so arguably internally it could help because it would help your liver function and maybe move out some toxins that are going on in your skin. But you can use it topically as well. If you use it internally, I like to take breaks from most tinctures that I use, but especially with Oregon grape, I usually don't take it for more than like 3 to 5 days, and then I'm making sure to take 3 to 5 days off. Basically, with my rule of thumb, if I'm using a tincture consistently, regardless of what it is, if I'm on a regime to do something, if I take it for 5 days, I take a 5-day break off. Right, and it's not that it's gonna like kill you if you don't. It's more along the lines of just like we don't want to push our bodies too hard or push any functions too hard because that can cause more internal stress. Okay, so let's see. Next question. How to preserve a lotion? You need to get yourself a preservative. I love Liquid Germall Plus. It's broad spectrum. My concussion brain didn't like that word. It's broad spectrum. It covers mold, yeast, and bacteria. Most of the natural ones suck. I went through them for years, and you end up having to get different kinds of natural ones. They split your lotion, which means they'll make it separate, you know, the oil from the water because you're doing emulsification science here to make this stuff go together. You have to use so much that it's like, I don't care if it's natural, it's still a chemical. They're just greenwashing it. But I love Liquid Germall Plus. I studied for a long time in regards of which one I was going to land on. And you know why I picked Liquid Germall Plus? Because it is what most labs use to keep their agar-agar, which is like they're making these little like petri dishes to grow bacteria and fungus and things on. It's what they use to keep it from growing bacteria while they're storing it. Right, and I really like that. I have pretty good rates with it in regards of like not spoiling super fast, and you can use it at a very small percentage. It's between 0.1 to 0.5% for the whole batch. You know, I do these huge, like really big batches, about 4.5 gallon batch, and I'm really only having to put like, usually like between 35 to 45 grams in there, which is like a tiny little cupful. You know, I'm not having to put a ton on there, and it's formaldehyde free. Okay, next question, I kind of covered this one. I know it's it's a common one. So somebody said, can you use dried herbs for tinctures the same way as fresh? 99.9% of herbalists will tell you yes, but I'm going to tell you no, because I was eating grapes before I went live, people, so pretend these grapes are a plant because they are. This grape, when it is still a grape and not dry, it has a lot of water in it, right? It has a lot of water. But within the water, there's all sorts of like water-soluble properties. They could be terpenes and other things like that. when this grape dries into a raisin, it will have lost a lot of those properties, right? Because they're water soluble, but they're also like dependent on, like, they break down as it dries. So when you make a tincture out of dried plant matter, what happens is you miss a huge amount of the water soluble properties, and then you end up with the alcohol soluble properties, which are typically more volatile, which means they're not necessarily bad for you, but they can be more likely to hurt you or cause negative reactions when you don't have them balanced. It's kind of like a balance with the water soluble properties. So it's kind of like, you know how, I just spit. It's kind of like, you know how if you take vitamins and you don't take vitamins with the correct other vitamins, your body not only can't utilize them, but it can cause damage in your body, right? Like, but the grape has everything it needs when you eat it. Same concept when making a tincture with dried plant matter. You're missing a huge portion of this plant. The only time that I will concede to using dried plant matter is typically roots, berries, and polypore wood-based mushrooms, because they are engineered to hold on, and or with the mushrooms, they don't really have a whole lot of moisture content to begin with. But if you're working with something, say, like rose petals or nettle, or like, you know, anything that's like wet and alive, you will miss so many of the properties if you don't use it fresh. And I know that's hard. I know that's hard for some people sometimes, but I also think that people would be surprised if they got out and about in their environment where they could find these plants growing fresh. Okay, so I was like, I just spit. Oh, the comment section. I wish that Instagram would save the comment section so people could see this stuff, like, you know, on the replay. So they'd be like, why'd you just talk about spitting again? A fly is trying to get into my phone. It's like, there are more people I can try to eat. I hate flies so much. Okay, so get out of here, fly. They're aggressive too. They're like, I'm just gonna beat on you. Let's see. Next question. I'm gonna scroll way down here. Okay, I saw this question. Let me see, but there was a two-part question that bugged me. They don't store them together anymore now, so. So how about this one then? This one says, hello, I wish it would stay on the screen. How fast does Instagram think I can read? I'm pretty sure what they asked is their dad has COPD, and they want to know what could help. Mullein. All things mullein. Mullein infusion, mullein tincture, mullein capsules. When you make the infusion, if you can get away with it, I would really love you to add whole milk to it. There's such a huge misconcept that milk causes mucus, that you can't have it if you've got lung issues. Milk is actually really, really restoring to our lung tissues. And when you combine that with mullein, which is just amazing at opening up our breathing airways, helping us get mucus and crap out like that, thinning and expelling, and just really helping us raise those O2 levels in our body, she's just really fantastic. However, when you make a mullein infusion, and you can learn how to do that on my YouTube channel, I have a whole video about it, you need to strain it really well because it has tiny little hairs in there that can actually cause irritation. And isn't that ironic? But mullein is really amazing for that. So last year, out of nowhere, my son, who's almost 18 and really active, hikes up mountains, blah, 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 suddenly got asthma. We're pretty sure in late 2019 we got the thing that was going around because it hit our area like first. And then we had that year of like the smoke was so thick I couldn't see the mountains out this window. Pretty sure that's how he got asthma. We took him to a specialist, and he's like, I don't care where he got it, he just has asthma. Here's some steroids, deal with it. I'm like, I don't accept that. Right, and so we started working heavily with mullein, but also I started doing a lot of research, and I came across, I'm going to say this correctly, you're just going to think it's weird sounding, lion's milk mushroom. Yes, lion's milk mushroom. And it's not necessarily an easy one to source. It's pretty traditional, used in TCM, which is traditional Chinese medicine. That being used on a consistent basis in conjunction with the mullein, and my child is pretty much asthma free now. I don't think that it would necessarily work to like resolve asthma that somebody was born with, and it might not, I'm not saying you'll get rid of like COPD or anything like that, but it's been really fantastic for supporting like opening up those, you know, airways and everything like that. And So I've got an appointment in the next month or so with that specialist. It takes forever to get in, and I know you're supposed to take him there when he has asthma. But I'm taking him there to be like, his asthma seems to have resolved itself, just because I want to be that person that's like, yeah, I remember how you told me there was nothing we could do, and he just had to live with the fact that he had asthma and take all these steroids. I just kind of want to be like, oh, turns out you were fucking wrong. And that's just, I don't do that very often, but sometimes, like, he was just, like, so defeatist. Like, he told my son was, like, really worried, because he's like, I hunt, and I hike, and I fish, and I have to be able to do active, and all these things, and I want to know why this happened, and the guy was like, it just happened, and you're going to be on steroids the rest of your life. And he just was like, just deal with it. You're not going to be able, and he even said, maybe you should consider start playing video games. What? Fuck off, there's something wrong with video games, but like, you basically told my child to just accept a sedentary lifestyle because you'd always be asthmatic. And I'm like, no, you know, it was just, yeah. So, I'm going to that. Okay, so next question. Let's see. Let me scroll down here. Currently pregnant and looking for anything to help with stretch marks. I feel you. My son that I was just talking about, when he came out of me, he was over 10 pounds, and I almost doubled my body weight. And I'm a tiny person, so, you know, but still I was like, it looked like I like swallowed a beach ball. They're like, oh, when are you due? I'm like, 3 more months. So I have stretch marks on the back of my legs even. But one thing that definitely helped during my second pregnancy, when I actually was like, I should do something about this, with my daughter, is to use castor oil. Now you can make a calendula infused castor oil, or just use castor oil and you're using it externally. It will be kind of sticky feeling. Sometimes I use it when I get right out of the shower because my skin is wetter, so it goes a little on a little better. Sometimes I'll cut it with a little bit of avocado oil so it's not so thick. It does soak in. It's just one of those tacky oils that takes a while. However, castor oil is really fantastic for soaking into those deep dermal layers of our skin and help be elastic. You need that elasticity for your skin to stretch, but it's also really good at resolving scar tissue, and calendula is amazing for that too. So I'm always pairing calendula with castor oil. So you can watch my calendula infused castor oil video on YouTube, and you can just use normal castor oil in the meantime. Not internally. You're not using the castor oil internally. You're using it externally. Please stop using castor oil internally. If you have a midwife or anybody who's saying, you need to take this castor oil so you'll go into labor, it's just going to make you shit. And there's a huge amount of people that believe that, okay, so first of all, it was male gynecologists, you know, the male-driven gynecology, OBGYN industry. It started with men. There's a huge dark history to it with slavery and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things they started doing was giving women castor oil because it would make them shit. And then guess what happens when you don't give birth? You don't poop yourself when you give birth because you've had violent diarrhea for days. Right? And so I just don't use castor oil internally, but externally it's pretty amazing for helping with the itchy skin of stretch marks and helping prevent some of that if you use it early. But yeah. Okay. Let's see. Come on, questions. Oh my gosh, the questions aren't loading. Instagram's like, you're done for. You've talked about things that we do not. Oh, they came back. They came back. I'm all right now. Sometimes it takes away my notifications for days at a time. And I have to like uninstall and reinstall the app. And like, I'm a big account, but I want you to know that Instagram does not care about you being a big account unless you're in like the millions range. Like nobody gets back to me or fixes issues. Okay, so let me, I don't know why they have it half gray and half white. So this person says, hi April, I get excruciating cramps during my cycle. Any herbal friends that can help? Thank you. Yes. The first thing is to dig into the why. You know, like, how is your body depleted? When we are like nutritionally depleted in some area, and we most are, so it's no judgment. We just kind of live in like that reality right now. It can be like really painful to have periods. One thing that can help beyond looking into your nutrition and making sure that you're eating enough fats and things like that often enough is to consider drinking a red clover infusion like 2 to 3 days before you start your cycle, and then like 2 to 3 days at the end of your cycle, right? So you're like, I'm gonna bleed in 3 days, so today I'm gonna start drinking this infusion, and then I'm gonna take off the first 3 days of my cycle because you don't want to make yourself bleed too heavy because it is a natural blood thinner as well. But then you're gonna drink it on the last 3. You need to be consistent with it. But yeah, I'll say that one thing that's been really interesting for me when I started eating pro-metabolic, and again, that's not a diet, it's just making sure that we're getting all the macros and micros and fats and carbohydrates and things that our body needs consistently. I used to have, like, the first 2 days of my period, it would feel like I got fucking kicked by a donkey. Right, and I could use herbs like mugwort tincture, red clover, catnip. I can use things to dull that pain, but what I have found in the past 3 to 4 months that I've been eating pro-metabolic is that my cycle comes, and I do have cramps, but it's like a normal level of cramps. Like I'm not like debilitated by it. I'm not really reaching for stuff very often to help the cramps, other than when I'm trying to relax, maybe a heating pad or something like that. But that has been a pleasant surprise. And it's because my body actually has the nutrients and things that it needs to function correctly. So that might just be something to look into. People are like, oh, God damn it. April's become like a fucking spokesperson for pro-metabolic, but the type of person I am is that, like, once I learn something and I see that it's like working for me, I want to share that with you. I really want to share that with you. And I'm not like, now that I know, I will make a course and you will pay me and you will learn. I'm like, no, I'm really excited about this. So, like, check out pro-metabolic. It's really been fantastic for all kinds of things in my life. Okay, so let's see. Next question. So here's a question. They said, where's a good place to get fresh and dried herbs if you can't forage them for yourself? Well, fresh herbs is a harder one. I have found over the years, like when I'm like, like, you know, like this year the National Forest shut down in my area. It was a situation because, like, I earn a living off of forest goods, and, you know, I have to have like permits to go gather and stuff like that. But I have found that you can order a lot of culinary herbs like rosemary, sage, which isn't actually a sage, it's a mint. I saw somebody asked me that question a while back. Rosemary, thyme, sage. You can get sometimes fresh lavender, things like that, from places that are selling it bulk and culinary. And then you can always reach out. There's herb farms out there like crazy, and there's so many of them here on Instagram now that have popped up that are like, you know, we're growing this, we're growing that. Like, if you reach out to them, you could probably ask them if they could, like, overnight ship you, you know, some fresh chamomile or some catnip or this or that. But I'd also say get curious about your surroundings. More people than I can count on one hand have told me that they don't think that there's anywhere around them that they can find, like, public access, like, land or forest or anything like that. I'm like, have you gone online and looked? Because you can get curious and you can find these places. And I'm not saying that, like, we want to gather from, like, somewhere like Central Park in New York. However, a lot of places, like, people have this concept that they have to be, like in the most remote, pristine area before they can, like, gather anything. Of course, you have to, you know, be like, is there dogs pissing here like crazy? Maybe I shouldn't gather it. But there are a lot of people who gather herbs in urban areas that are just fine. You know, I would say that, like, you know, just be like, oh, is this like a super crazy busy road? Are they spraying stuff? Just use your own individual, like, you know, intuition and look for nuances in your area. But you can probably find stuff out there more than you realize if you get curious about it. And then as far as dried herbs, you could always look at Star West Botanicals, San Francisco Herb Company is a good one. Mountain Rose Herbs isn't bad. They're usually they're really behind. You know, they've been backlogged for like 2 years now. I mean, they get stuff out, but it takes a while to get stuff from them. And Frontier Herbal is another good one. Okay, so let's see. Next question. Let me scroll here. Oh, this is the question I wanted to ask. It's a two-part question, but I remember the other part of it. They said, I've been working on a Reishi, which is a Reishi mushroom face toner with witch hazel and distilled water. I infused Reishi into witch hazel for weeks, And then I think that they're adding in distilled water, and they're concerned about that growing bacteria, and it will. So witch hazel in itself is shelf stable. It's usually between 7 to 14% alcohol. That is not enough to make it shelf stable, but the witch hazel extraction is really full of tannins, and that prevents bacterial growth. But when you start adding water to that, first of all, you're going to knock that really small amount of alcohol out of the park. It'll just dilute it even more, and then you'll be diluting the tannins. And so I wouldn't do that. Instead, I would consider maybe making, if you're wanting like the water soluble properties of the mushroom, like if you're doing a decoction where you're putting the mushrooms in a pot with water and you're simmering it halfway down, then you add water again, and then you simmer it down. People usually do that 2 or 3 times so you have the water soluble and heat soluble properties of a mushroom. I would consider adding some rubbing alcohol to your witch hazel. You just need it to be 25% alcohol. And usually if you buy, let's say you buy 50% rubbing alcohol, that means that it's half water, half alcohol already, and that you can add 1 cup of water to 1 cup of 50% rubbing alcohol, and that will be 25% alcohol total. So it doesn't have to be like alcohol that's so strong that it would hurt your skin, right? You could make it half and half, and then you could get away with adding 2 or 3, even 4 cups of that mushroom decoction back into your toner without risking bacterial growth, because it has that alcohol in it to keep it shelf stable. Okay, so let me take a drink here. All right, so next question, and just as a reminder, folks, I'm only answering questions that are submitted through the question box. Oh, this one was really interesting to me. They said, thoughts on comfrey containing aluminum, and a naturopathic doctor, an NTP, told them, but they need answers. So I actually saw this one come in earlier today, and I was like, what? So I looked and looked and looked, and when I say I looked, I'm like deep into like PubMed, NCIB, I'm deep into studies. I'm looking at like what metals is comfrey like typically like chelating out of the soil, which means it's taking it into itself and can by proxy pass it on to you. Comfrey doesn't have aluminum in it. I'm thinking they meant allotonin or alkaloids. If they told you that it has something in it that's dangerous, I'm guessing they meant alkaloids. Some comfrey, particularly the non-hybrid comfrey, has high alkaloid levels, and these can hurt your liver. But allotonin, on the flip side, which is something else that is in comfrey, actually helps your body produce new cells. It's why comfrey is so amazing at healing wounds. In fact, she's so fantastic at healing wounds, you have to use her correctly or you could do damage, because you can just get like a nasty cut on your arm and put comfrey on there, and it will instantly start closing the wound from the top down. But that's a problem, because your body naturally heals from the inside up, right? And so if you start using comfrey on a wound before it has a scab, you can trap bacteria in there, and that's how you go septic and get really bad infections, right? Because that's why your body heals from the down portion of the wound from the inside up, because it wants to push out any debris or bacteria so it doesn't get into your bloodstream. So the one thing that I did look, that comfrey has the capacity to chelate out of soil, chelate, probably saying it wrong. It can take lead up pretty good. And so it can have lead in it if they're growing in contaminated soil or high lead areas. However, so just to backtrack here, hybrid comfrey was invented a long while back, and they made it as animal feed, and they kept changing it to where it had less of those alkaloids. That way they could feed it to cattle and sheep and stuff, because it will grow huge. The hybrid variety grows like taller than I am. And I'm not that tall, but still, it grows really big, but the wild variety stays small and bushy. And so it wasn't really a good source for feed, right? Because it didn't grow very big, and it could hurt the animals if they ate it. And so I only use hybrid comfrey internally, and I'm usually not drinking the comfrey infusion for more than 2 or 3 days. And then back to the regards of it having heavy metals, if you're buying from any reputable like bulk herb supplier, like let's say Mountain Rose Herb, you know, you can ask them for a COA, right? That's called a certificate of analysis. They might not have to perform that, but the person they bought it off of, that they sourced it from, will have had to. and that's where they are sending in this Comfrey for, usually it's a lab test that covers like the botanical identification. It's usually like an HTPLC lab test that's like, yes, this is Comfrey. And then they're usually looking for like things like pesticides as well as heavy metals. I do a lot of this testing with my tinctures. I have to. And so like they should have that if you ask for a COA. Okay, I do not have a podcast. I have enough like obligations and shit on my plate that I'm like, and that stuff type, like, it freaks me out. Like, having to be there at any certain time on a certain day would, like, I'd be like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be there. So, like, I just do this stuff impromptu. Okay. So, next question. Get out of here, fly. Let me scroll down. How am I? I'm okay. I'm all right. Herbal support for the times we are in, because what the fuck is happening? That is a very valid question. People are like, what haven't you been posting? I'm like, well, skirting a nervous breakdown, trying to, like, you know, survive this. So all of the Nervines, all the things that help our body cope with stress, adaptogens, tulsi, milky oats, chamomile, deep breathing, working with your vagus nerve. I point at my ears because like you can get to your vagus nerve by right here, and I actually have my little machine here that I used before I went live. This is a TENS machine, TENS, a TENS machine. I take these little doodads and I hook it up to my ears right here. You know that little flap you have? What is it, a conchial? I can't remember the fucking name of it. I hook it up to my ear flaps. And I usually put it on like level 1. You know, you don't want it to like be uncomfortable because this is electricity. And it stimulates my vagus nerve, which helps my parasympathetic nervous system feel okay. Right? When you can't ramp down, it's because your parasympathetic nervous system is like, I'm not going to calm down. Like, that's how you feel comfortable enough to relax, to digest food, to feel safe in your own body. And that has been a really big thing in helping me. I've also been really, like, enjoying chamomile tincture lately. I use chamomile tea all the time, but I've just been like, yeah, that mellows me out. And working with CBD, and basically anything that can, like, help us breathe and get out of our head a bit, and like get off the news, and like jump off of Facebook, unfollow a bunch of people or mute people that are like constantly talking like politics or stress. That's not you checking out, and that's not your privilege either. That's you safeguarding your mental health, right? Like, it doesn't mean that you don't care, that you're not, you know, involved or being active. It means that you are having mental health and physical boundaries with how much you can take in at any given time. And like my grandma Ruby always said to me growing up, if we knew everything that was going on in the world at the same time, we would lose our fucking minds. And I present to you our reality. Right? Like, that's what's going on right now. Okay, so let me see the next question I'm going to answer. I'm trying to scroll down to some that came in from yesterday. So somebody asked, is bull thistle and milk thistle the same thing, and where can I find bull thistle? Thank you. So no, they are not the same thing. They are in the same plant family. They're all kind of in the artichoke family, actually. An artichoke is a thistle that we've just kind of cultivated to be able to eat. Most thistles are edible, but always look into the thistle you're working with, because some might not be. Bull thistle tends to grow in areas that are disturbed. She's highly invasive in the US and most other countries away from, like, Europe. She was brought over here as a food source. Her roots are delicious. You can even, I have a video all about thistle, about bull thistle. And I usually just find her like in abandoned areas, like ripped up yards, abandoned gardens. You kind of just have to kind of look at all those places that have been neglected. They're invasive in the way that they'll take over areas like that, but they don't typically push out like native plants because they're not that aggressive. However, you'll find her in like pastures, things like that, where people have like not been maintaining it, and they work their way in, and there's not enough native biodiversity in there to keep the thistle out, so they move in pretty quick. So I do make my own tallow. I need to make a video on it. I just haven't really gotten around to it, and I make it in really big batches. So what I need to do is like get a little set up so I can make a small enough batch on video. feel like I would be too distracted with my big batch, and I don't want to burn it. Right, like so I'm like, but I will probably do one this winter. But it's not super hard, it really isn't. Okay, so let's see. Let's see. I'm scrolling through here. I don't know why it's like giving me different levels of gray on the questions. So this person said, their plantain turned brown during curing. Are they still safe to use? So plantain, they're not talking about bananas. They're talking about plantain leaf, like the plantain that's probably growing out in any grass that you can go and look in right now for the most part. Yeah, sometimes she turns a little brown. If you're curing it using a dehumidifier, it might not have happened fast enough. It might have been too small of a humidifier for the space, right? But it won't hurt anything. And sometimes I've had them be really bright green, sometimes they'll go a little bit browner, and I noticed that if I pick them after they go to seed, they tend to go browner more easy than if I pick them before they go to seed. But I've never had like an issue with it not working in infusions or felt like it did anything to really hurt the quality of it. Okay, so let's see. Next question. So this person asked if I will have my tallowed honey pine salve available soon. I will, probably in October. Well, actually the end of October. I'm going to do a whole different thing for my shop updates going forward, but I'll jabber about that a different day. I just wish they would give it to me the way they used to. Every time I eat anything, I get a stomach ache. I do have Sibo, but nothing helps. What would you do? Well, you got to attack the Sibo. You know, it's not something that we can just continue living with. And I know that like a lot of people are like, well, nothing I do works. And so it's not like I'm like, well, you haven't tried hard enough. That's not what I mean at all. So just to put this into perspective, my son almost like died from non-typical Sibo. Sibo usually causes like extreme gas and like diarrhea in people like that. They get a stomach ache, they really don't feel well. And my son, it caused just random vomiting. He never had like a stomach ache or he never had bad gas. It was just like the constant urge to vomit all the time, no matter what. We took him to so many doctors. We took him to Dornbecker's, which is like a famous children's hospital. He lost like the better part of 48 pounds. No matter what we did, like we could not keep food in him, no matter what it was. And every time we took him to a fucking doctor, they were like, here's some heartburn medication. He's got heartburn. Or like one lady tried to say, because eventually, I'm not going to lie, he started smoking weed because I helped with the nausea and to get food to them. One lady goes, we took him to a specialist and she goes, I think he's allergic to marijuana. And I'm like, I think he was puking like this before he smoked some weed. And the one thing that slowly somewhat seems to stop the vomiting, I'm not going to like. So finally, I found a functional medicine doctor that would see us without insurance. So I was just like, I don't have insurance at the time, you know, that they would take anyhow. Long story short, he's like, would you ever consider testing him for Sibo? I'm like, oh my God, I've been like trying to tell people that I'm pretty sure like what happened was he got sick and like he got sick from food poisoning and he'd been on this stupid kick to eat the spiciest food ever, which if you're not from like a culture that eats spicy food all the time, it can really hurt your gut bacteria, you know, because we're not adapted to it. And sure enough, he was like, well, you can just order, you know, a Sibo test from here. And his Sibo levels were so bad from the test that the fucking technician that read it wrote wow. They wrote wow on there because it was so bad. And so I decided that because his was so advanced, that we would do the Amy Myers protocol. I'm not one for buying like herbal supplements and things like that very often in regards of like a formula. But I just needed something that would give most of the things that I was going after. And so I used her Microbe Clear, which is a pretty solid formula. It's got like Oregon grapefruit in it, and it's got black walnut in it, and some things like that. His die-off was brutal. And it started as soon as he started taking it. It took like a week of like, it was bad. He was really ill for that first week doing the die-off. But then we also used, with her Sibo protocol, it's her Primal Earth probiotics, which are soil-based. If you have Sibo, you really need soil-based probiotics. And within 2 weeks, he stopped vomiting. and we cut sugar out for a little while. And that actually led to more of my burnout because your body desperately needs sugar. Don't at me about that. Every cell in your body runs off of glucose. And if you don't eat it, it starts eating your own muscles and everything like that. It's bad. But for him, we had to cut it out for a while. And then we started working with like way more like bone broth and like making sure that he was eating enough like gelatin and things like that to help heal his gut. And he gained all of his weight back and he's just a normal kid now. And so I would say that we were trying fermented food prior to that protocol and it didn't do any good. You have to get rid of the bacteria overgrowth before you can repopulate. But yeah, it was through Amy Myers, and that's what I would suggest for anybody with Sibo. It was, I mean, it might not work for you, but like my kid had like Sibo bad enough that he was dying, you know. It was really, really bad. And we tried so many things, and it just, nothing hit it. And it was just like that combination of the particular herbs and that microbe clear blend from Amy Myers plus her soil-based probiotics like saved his life. It was pretty crazy. So anyhow, let's see, next question. Scroll way down here. I already answered that one. So, okay, somebody asked me, I'm just going to answer this. Have you dabbled in gemotherapy or flower essences? I've made flower essences before, but I've always been upfront with people about the placebo effect. Nothing bugs me more than when I see somebody teaching a course in gemotherapy or flower essences and telling people that this will, like, heal some sort of, like, condition they've got going on. Because the truth is, people, when you buy a flower essence from somebody, you are buying water. Water. They may have floated flowers on top of it for a while. They may have sat flowers next to it for a while. They then typically stabilize it with some alcohol, or they just sell you water. But there is literally nothing in that bottle. Okay? There is a powerful effect of believing in placebos, all right? You will really, 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 really benefit from telling your mind that this Tic Tac that I wrote get better pills on will make me feel better, because your brain doesn't necessarily know. It just believes what you're taking. I could swallow a grape and be like, this grape will make me feel happy today. And I've told my brain that, so it decides to feel happy today, right? And so, like, our words and what we tell ourselves are really powerful. So I'm not going to say that, like, if I sell you a flower essence of locust and it's going to make you feel strong and you believe that, you're like, yes, I was confident today because I took this flower essence of locust. But really, there's nothing in there that's actually causing that. It's just your brain. Right, and I guess you could say that, like, there's energy in that. You know, there's energy in plants, I believe that. But, like, it's the same as, do you believe if you soaked yourself in some bath water and then drank that bath water that your energy is in that in the way that it can do something for you? And so, and then when it comes to gemotherapy, the one thing that is potentially in those tinctures that they make with crystals, and there's all different levels of it. Some people are just talking about it's more like they're putting gems in their body, and we do know that we can measure like energy fields and things that come off of particular crystals. But what we also know is that most crystals are water soluble. They have minerals in them that can be extracted from water. Like, you don't want to get your crystals wet because it can damage them. But people are making tinctures out of crystals, and what's probably in there besides just water is dangerous heavy metals. And so it's really really just important to understand that with the crystal aspect, you can damage yourself. And with flower essences, it's more about the placebo effect. And that's fine. If you are open about that with people, about that this might have heavy metals in it, you should not be giving that to them. But like, if you are like, listen, flower essences work in the way that they tap into our ability to tell our brain how it's going to feel, that's fine. But if you look a motherfucker in the face and say, oh, this flower essence will cure you, and you charge them like Like, you're selling somebody a bottle of water. How much can you really justify charging for that? I see people selling bottles of flower essence for like $20, $30. Are you serious? And that's really like you're preying on somebody, right? It's really like you're preying on somebody's desire to feel better, and you're taking advantage of that by charging that much, right? But if you're upfront about it and be like, give me $5 for the cost of the bottle or something like that, you know? Yes, I will be saving this live to my IGTV. I'm going to maybe upload it to my YouTube as well, and then on my Facebook. Okay, so let me take a drink here. I have a flower essence video to show people how to make flower essences on YouTube, and I'm like, did you know that people even say, and I'm just talking shit, I'm going to get so much hate mail, that people are like, you have to cut it. Once you make your flower essence, you have to cut it with more water because it might be too strong. I'm sorry, I couldn't hold back the laughter. There are entire classes out there that you pay money to learn how to float flowers on top of water. And then they tell you, like, mathematically how you have to cut it with more water so it's not too strong. And I'm just like, I can't hold the laughter back. What the fuck? Like, this is not... Anyhow, that little song means somebody's come through my driveway. There'll be another one, because it's my husband getting home with grain for the animals. But I'm not done yet. Just let me know what that song is. Okay. So, let me go to another question so I don't rant anymore about that. So, herbal support for sleeping issues and negative or heavy, darker dreams. So, there are herbs that can help you sleep a lot better. You know, all the Nervines, really, which means anything that makes you feel sedated. I don't really like valerian, which is the one that people usually run to because it, like, knocks you over the head, right? And you wake up feeling gross, and that's too strong. But you could try like something like catnip or milky oats. Might not like sedate you, but like it might help your nervous system calm down a bit. Trying a lot of that one's the more scary sound because it means someone's closer. We have a long driveway and we live really remote, so I like to know when people are coming up it. So I found some sensors. They make noises when people come. But anyhow, I also really have been enjoying chamomile, just like on a personal level for helping with sleep. You can look into Tulsi, really any Nervines. Also, when it comes to our dreams being really like dark and scary, you know that's trauma, right? It's stress. Your subconscious is trying to convey something to you that it either wants you to deal with or face or work through. And I say this with like the utmost compassion as a person who has straight up night terrors. And a night terror is different than a nightmare. It means like, and I haven't done it for a very long time, but like I will wake up and my nightmare will continue. Like years, like, well, my youngest is 14 now. So like, you know, about 13 and a half years ago or less, I woke up. My dreams are always like really intelligent, terrifying zombies. I can't watch or be around zombie stuff, not because I'm afraid of it during the day, but it like triggers those dreams, and I'm always like running to the mountains and things like that. I woke up and I woke up almost driving off because I woke up in my dream and I packed up my infant and I was going to get my toddler, and I had my whole Jeep packed and I was going to drive. So night terrors are no joke. One thing that really helped me and has been helping me a lot recently, beyond like dealing with my trauma and facing this stuff and evaluating what they mean and like just kind of like addressing stressors in my life the best that I can, is a grounding sheet. It's just a sheet that you plug into the grounding outlet of your wall, right? Like you have 3 prongs on your outlet. You know, if you live in the U.S. or anywhere that has similar plugins, you have 2 top ones and the bottom prong, right? You plug it into the bottom one, and what that does is it connects you to the ground that most houses have that are pounded into the earth. And what happens is it grounds you, like it's as if you were grounding outside, like if you were walking barefoot, and it really relieves like a bunch of like the negative ions that have built up. And that's like scientific. It's not like some like woo-woo shit. Like it really does that. And it has really helped me both sleep deeper and longer, and my nightmares are very minimal now. And of course I'm addressing other things like that. My dreams are more vivid, which is crazy because I already have really vivid dreams. But yeah, I really have had good luck with a grounding sheet, and they're a little expensive, so you can also buy like, pull my skirt out, you can also buy like a grounding pillow sheet. Pillow sheet. I love my brain. A pillowcase, you know, and you're just sleeping on it, and it just helps you get rid of those negative ions. Yeah, cannabis can cause people to stop dreaming, but you know that when you don't dream, you're not getting good sleep, right? Like, we only really dream when we're in a deep restorative sleep. So, like, I don't want somebody to work on, like, stopping their dreams. I want somebody to work on, like, the why behind their lack of sleep, or the why behind their having nightmares, or the why behind it, right? Like, we don't just want to mask it with cannabis. Like, we want to be able to, like, face this and, like, go forward. Okay, so, all right, let me see. So let me keep scrolling here. Thoughts about the GAPS protocol. Interested in intensive gut healing. People aren't going to like me, but the GAPS protocol, I believe, does more damage than it does good. Now, the GAPS protocol is basically where, like, people, like, remove huge amounts of food from their diet. They end up eating a very, very restrictive diet. And just let me say, yes, it probably has helped some people. But for a lot of people, what happens is you remove so many foods from your diet, you desensitize your digestive tract, and then, like, you develop even more food sensitivities, right? Because think about it this way. Imagine this little doggy right here. I buy her, yes, I love you too, Sally. I buy her really high quality dog food. But that's really all she eats. I give her little pieces of human food here and there, but that's not good for her, so I really just stick to that dog food. What would happen if all she ate was that dog food, and then I suddenly switched to another food? It would make her sick, right? And that's because her digestive tract isn't accustomed to it. It takes a while. So the GAPS protocol is kind of the same way, in the way that you're eliminating so many foods from your diet that by the time you go to add them back in, they cause you distress, and you're like, oh, that's why I'm sick. I have to not eat that food anymore. What if you just got sick because you haven't been eating that forever, and you've been eating a very bland diet? So if you want to heal your gut, I would really suggest looking at getting all Pufa oils out of your diet. I would look at making sure that you're eating easy to digest food. I would make sure that I was eating, like, a lot of, like, beef gelatin and bone broth and healthy animal fats. And I would start looking at working with my vagus nerve, because that's really, like, related to digestion and how you're feeling. Some people even have stomach issues because of the way they chew and the way they breathe. They're taking in all this oxygen, like, incorrectly as you're eating and things like that. There are so many different areas that we can look at to heal our gut health, outside of just jumping onto a really restrictive GAPS protocol. And that one I've just seen it do more harm than good in most people. Pufa oils, think about, like, Pufas as, like, okay, so until about, I don't know, 50 years or so ago, people weren't really eating things like canola oil, soybean oil. They weren't eating safflower or sunflower. They weren't eating all these nasty fucking oils. They're not real. We were eating things like tallow and lard and butter and ghee, which is just refined butter. And you can do, like, coconut oil, and then, like, you can eat olive oil, but don't cook with it because it destabilizes it. You just eat that as a food. You can, and if you really have to use an oil that's not an animal fat, I would do avocado oil because it's high heat and doesn't break down. Those man-made oils go rancid in your body, and it's ridiculously how connected they are to pretty much every disease that's popped up in the past 50 years since we've industrialized our food production. So, you know, like, even things like people like sugar is bad, it causes stress for your body and diabetes. No, it doesn't. It's just that the Pufa oils in our food prevent our bodies from utilizing the glucose. Right? Like, you'll learn about a lot of this with, like, the Pro-metabolic and things like that. But yeah, if there's one thing that anybody could do for their health is to get all Pufa oils out. Now, there are naturally occurring Pufas in foods like salmon and some nuts. You can still eat those things, but eat them in moderation. You don't need to eat them constantly. But those foods have vitamin E in them, naturally occurring vitamin E, which helps counteract the Pufa content, right? So it's like that whole thing about, like, nature knows what it's doing in conjunction. But when we start separating things, it causes damage. So, sorry. I know I intensity talked about that. Yeah, I don't cook with olive oil because it breaks down. It's not meant for high heat. It's meant for eating. Like eating, you know, like on your salad or something like that. I typically cook with animal fats and only animal fats, or if I am going to like fry something and I don't have enough lard to use, I am going to use avocado oil. And people are like, oh, all those fats, they're horrible for you. No, your body needs cholesterol. Your body needs cholesterol to make every hormone in your body. Your body needs cholesterol to synthesize vitamin D from the sun. Your brain needs cholesterol. Every inch of your body needs cholesterol. People are like, how's your skin so clear? I eat lots of healthy cholesterol, eat healthy animal fats. My skin, there's no Pufa seeping out of me. That's why. Okay. Next question. I know I'm prone to get worked up, people. That's just kind of part of my neurodiversity, and then I'll just brain dump. This person said, blah, blah, blah. I saw it. Oh, my face gets swollen and puffy in the morning time. Any ideas? Well, I would be really interested in seeing what your lymphatic system is doing. Your lymphatic system, you know, your glands that you feel under here when you get sick that swell up, they're all over your body. They're moving toxins and water, and like your immune system's super information highway. They're sending white blood cells all over. But when they're stagnant and something's going on like that, like they're not functioning well, we can get like edema where we're like kind of like puffy and things are going on. So I would see if like maybe working with something like Cleaver's infusion, like drink on a regular basis, you know, like not constantly, but like a cup or so a day, and see if like really working with that lymphatic system, start doing lymphatic massage, even like doing things like jumping on a trampoline, get your lymphatic system moving. And I wonder if you did that stuff in the evening, how your body would respond in the morning, you know, but it might not be lymphatic, but my mind just went straight to lymphatic. Somebody said that ghee is a dirty word in Ireland for like the vagina. Yeah, there's some words that are like don't communicate cross well, right? So let's see what's next. Somebody said if you could use Russian comfrey for a tincture. You know, I've seen herbalists say that you can. I make a tincture out of it to use it topically, but the thing is, the allotonin content that we're pretty much after in comfrey and some of the minerals and nutrients that are in her, they don't transpose. Is that the fucking right word? They don't go into the tincture, and even if they did, it would be such a small amount internally that it would be like eating like 1/4 of a piece of a carrot and thinking that you got much nutrition out of that. So I don't think there's really much of a point of making a comfrey tincture unless you're going to be using it externally for like, you know, healing up a wound or like adding it to like a lotion or something like that. I do that sometimes. But for like using comfrey internally, I would just always stick with the nourishing herbal infusion. Just because, you know, you want to use it in balance, and a tincture isn't going to pull those particular like properties out the same way that an infusion would. Okay, so let's see. This person said that it got tinnitus as a result of the vid, constant high-pitched ringing in my ears for over 4 months. So I thought I did too. They're trying to say that it's a pretty common symptom. Definitely experiencing it. So I'm not saying that it's not happening. But we got it in very late 2019 before anybody would admit the fact that it was here, because where we live it came really really quick. It, like, we were in the first like area that it landed really, because we have a casino and a lot of people would come over from China to here, like a tourist thing, you know. I was like, I tried going to an audiologist. I went all kinds of places about my tinnitus, and they're like, it just happens, and if you got that thing that was going around, it's just a part of it. Well, I just didn't accept that, and so I started doing all other kinds of like testing on myself, and eventually I landed on getting my cortisol tested with a duodenal test, which is where you're spitting in tubes, right? And I started working on my cortisol because it was really high, and then like so high that I burnt myself out, and really high at night. And once I started working on like my stress response and like watching like making sure that I was eating enough and really nourishing my body, I started doing breath work and working with the TENS machine, which is this little machine right here. They have them, like, I think you can get them for like $80 or under on Amazon. You know, they're not super cheap, but they're also not super expensive. You can get like this was a more expensive one because it does multiple things that weren't related to working with my vagus nerve. And right now, the only time that I can hear my tinnitus is if the room is dead quiet. So I think that what's going around can cause symptoms, but I don't think that many doctors are really looking into the why. It's just like my son, and he got asthma afterwards, and he was told to just deal with having asthma. And I'm like, all right, so not gonna. But also another thing to look into is that this thing that's going around, it can like lower our immune system like any virus that we catch. And then most people have the EBV virus, which is the Epstein-Barr virus. And when that kicks up, and it's a really opportunistic virus, when our immune system is worn down, it flares up. It's in the herpes family, and it really likes to attack your eardrums. And so one thing that I also did was work on supporting my immune system and repressing those viral loads. I use a lot of like reishi mushrooms. I use St. John's wort because I don't have medications that I have to worry about. I don't take any medicines, so it wouldn't interact with anything. I also use self-heal herb, and lemon balm is another option if you can't use St. John's wort. It's really good for repressing those viruses. And like I said, I can only hear my tinnitus in a dead quiet room now. What's up?
Going back in the time.
Okay.
Yeah, if you get $300 and I thought this would bring a second load tomorrow.
Okay.
Figured you might as well get up.
All right. I love you. Drive safe. Farm talk. We're working on getting all of the feed in for our cattle and stuff before winter time. So he's doing all the farm things. Yeah, I think that eventually when people start researching more, they'll see that a lot of the long haul stuff is like related to EBV, and EBV's like opportunistic ability to like wake up when other things are stressful. Excuse me. I'm getting warm from talking, so I'm going to take this. I'm stuck. I can't get out. Oh my gosh. So one thing that I've been working on is gaining weight. For me, that's a good thing, you know. And I'm slowly like I have to buy new clothes, which is a good thing. And I'm like, but I was just like stuck in that shirt for a second. Vid is the thing that's going around, and if I pronounce it like fully, nobody will ever see this video. So it's the vid, right? So let me take a drink. All right. Yeah, when I went to, it took me a fucking month to get into a specialist, like, because like I woke up in the middle of the night like covered in sweat, and my tinnitus, which I'd never had before, it was so loud it woke me up. And so I was trying to get help for that, and it took me a month to get into this fucking guy that was like a specialist, like, you know, not just an audiologist, but like did all this stuff. And he was like, you just have tinnitus, here's a pamphlet of learning how to deal with it and some sounds you can play in the background. I'm not even fucking joking. I was in that office for less than 5 minutes. He wouldn't listen to me about the fact that like I woke up covered in sweat when it came on, that I never had it before, that like all these corresponding things, and he just didn't give a shit. And so I'm like, once again, I have to start like deep diving for myself and figuring it out. So yeah, I did. Yeah, we did. It was probably around late December, early January. We kind of like all got hit with something that I couldn't really pinpoint. I was like, is this fucking bronchitis or is it strep throat? It was like both dry, and then your throat was sore, but you had a cough that just wouldn't go away. And it was like, you know, waking up at night in fevers, and like it took me about a week to get everybody in the house okay. It responded really well to onion bloom elixir, which is just a tincture that has honey in it. And then we were using like lots of mullein, and I just treated it like it was like I didn't know what it was. And then like a week later, people were like, it's happening, it's coming, it's around, it's dangerous, run, you know. And so we definitely had it. And then we even had, after we got better, we had that like dry persistent cough, you know, that just kind of like wouldn't really go away, you know. And so it took about another month or so for me to get that to fully go away in all of us. And so yeah, onion, it really responded. Like I would wake up at night with like the cough or like the sore throat, and I would just like behind me on my headboard like grab the onion elixir and just shoot it into the back of my throat, and it would make it go away, and I'd go back to sleep. But yeah, after that I like started like things just went downhill, but I feel like I'm on an upswing. I do. Okay, so how long have I been on here? Let me check. It's 1:30, so I've been here an hour and a half. I'll probably do another half an hour because I'm feeling all right. And I want to answer some more questions. I feel bad because I know that I didn't answer like a ton, but I might be able to go back and answer some as a Q&A just on my stories. Let me go way down here. Oh, this is a good one. This person says, I'm having trouble finding a good resource for dosages for tinctures. So we live in a society that is pharmaceutical minded. We want to hear that if you weigh this much, you take this many pills, right? Like that's how we're conditioned. And there's no judgment because we've been conditioned that way. But herbal remedies and tinctures are not the same way. Now, for some stuff, maybe like poke root, I can say don't take more than 1 drop at a time because it's really like, you know, it's really, well, it's toxic. You know, it has its time and place, but whatever. But for most stuff, it's like you need to figure out your own body. I go over about this in my Let's Talk All About Tinctures video. And basically, it's like, I want you to start with like 1 drop and work your way up. Some people start at 5. Like you say, okay, well, the common dose is between 5 to 10 drops. I'm going to start at, 1 to 3 and see how I feel. That didn't help. I'm going to go up to 5, see how I feel. That didn't help. Maybe I need 15 drops. Oh, that made me feel kind of funky, so I'm going to work back down. Part of working with herbal remedies and herbs in general is like being responsible for your own body and like what you're putting in it and how it's going to make you feel. So you can say, another question was, somebody was like, I'm having to take a whole half dropper full before like I feel anything from this or I feel like it's helping me. Cool, you found the dose that works for your body. But other people might be like, oh, I took like 5 or 10 drops and it made me feel gross or this or this or that, but if I scale back to 3 or 4, it doesn't make me feel that way. Cool, you found the dose for your body, right? It's not a one-size-fits-all like pharmaceutical medications are. And so that's a really important one. And somebody asked if we can put tinctures in our coffee or our tea. Yeah, with your coffee, I would just say wait till it's like cooled down to drinkable, right? You don't want it to be like steaming hot where you can't take a drink because that can destroy some of the herbal properties. However, if you do want to use a tincture and you don't want to consume alcohol, a lot of people are worried about that, you can put the dose in a little bit of like, usually say tea warm water and wait 30 to 35 minutes and a minuscule amount of alcohol will evaporate out. And when I say minuscule, I mean minuscule. When you make a tincture with 100 proof vodka, which is 50% water, 50% alcohol, so half and half, that means every drop of tincture you take is only half alcohol. So let's say you take 10 drops of a tincture. There's only 5 drops of alcohol in that. There's literally more alcohol in a ripe banana or in your toothpaste or in, let's say, a kombucha drink or in your mouthwash that might not be alcohol-free than there is in the average dose of tincture. Okay, so another drink here. Let's see. Scrolling through. I know I keep bitching about how they're showing me the the questions, but I really don't like it. This person says, what could I make that helps with pain from inflammation? I have severe osteoarthritis in my spine. So osteoarthritis is where like you've just been bending and moving enough that it's like ground down and it's like from wear and tear, right? I mean, it's more complex that, but like osteoarthritis isn't like rheumatoid. That's caused from like an immune system issue. So what we're talking about now is like just beating our bodies up. So the first thing I would do is make sure that I was really upping the intake of like gelatin, cartilage type foods, right? Like you can't build new cartilage and you can't build new bones if you don't have the building blocks for it, right? So more bone broth, starting to work with like grass-fed beef gelatin, making your own jello jigglers and eating them. They're delicious. You can make gummies that are big enough that you can just eat like a square of a gummy. That's so much better than little ones. They're full of chemicals. And working on that stuff, making sure that you're eating enough like healthy, like high quality dairy products so you actually have the capacity to build bone mass from the bioavailable calcium. But also, like, Comfrey would be a good one to rotate through the nourishing herbal infusions. There's a lot of studies that show that Comfrey can, like, outright reverse osteoporosis. Like, my mom, like, when she uses it consistently, her hands no longer hurt from her osteoarthritis, right? She's like, it's not swollen and stiff. I'm like, yeah, Comfrey is really amazing for that. Another name for Comfrey is knit bone. Knit bone. Like, she can heal broken bones. She's so amazing. Like, Comfrey is a really amazing ally. Now, even though the pain is coming internally, you might be able to get a little bit of relief internally, or externally for your internal pain. Thank you for letting me be a human. You can make yourself a cayenne infused body oil. Don't get it in your eyes or on open wounds. But cayenne is really fantastic for helping to like calm down nerve pain ending and just pain in general. That might help pretty good. California poppy tincture. You could also make a tea if you wanted to. Would be pretty good for helping probably dull some of that pain in the way that she's really good for bone-related pain, and she stimulates our opioid receptors in our brain, even though she doesn't have opioids in her. Did you know that your body actually naturally produces opioids to deal with pain? And so you can actually help your body like increase your pain threshold by using California poppy. She's pretty amazing. I really like her. So somebody asked, how did I become so knowledgeable about all of this? You just get curious. Just start reading, and I would say read from so many different sources that you can't even track them. That way that like you are learning on your own accord, and that you aren't like falling in line with somebody else's agenda. Everybody has agenda. Even I have an agenda. And if we just stick to one person or one place constantly, we can really miss out on like differing viewpoints and different things like that. And then also for me, it's part of my neurodiversity. Like when I don't learn stuff, my dopamine levels drop and I can get depressed. So I read a lot. I learn a lot. I'm very, very curious. I can melt your face with information that I've incurred over the years and amassed. Okay. So, somebody asked about, I can't find anything about catnip. Made a tincture and have questions about its use. Catnip is really fantastic for supporting like anxiety. I really like catnip if I'm having a panic attack. So, the difference between a panic attack and an anxiety attack, a lot of people don't know. An anxiety attack is you're worked up, you're uncomfortable, you want to go home, you want to get out of here, you're feeling nervous. A panic attack is where you like believe that you're dying. Like you're so worked up and you're so freaked out that you can't breathe, you want to go to the hospital. That's a panic attack. Both of these aren't fun, but I like catnip for sudden panic. She's really, really fantastic for that. But beyond helping us just like step back and see the cycle that we're in for overthinking, she's also really good for just like calming us down, helping us sleep at night. And because she's in the mint family, she's good for digestion, which is fantastic if you've got nausea or like diarrhea along with your anxiety, because our body physically responds. I shit myself when I have anxiety. When I have an anxiety attack, like my odds of having diarrhea are pretty high. So I like working with catnip in that regard, because not only is she addressing my mental aspect and helping me calm down, but she helps relieve those physical symptoms, and sometimes relieving the physical symptoms can help relieve the mental symptoms, right? So, but she's also good for menstrual cramps, so she's good for mild pain too. Okay, so, next question. Let's see. And my brain fucking loves this, and I have to be careful because I tap into my psychomotor too much, and I can talk for like 4 hours, and then it kills my body, right? So that's why I'm like, I have to be careful at how much I do. I have high cholesterol from a scalpel happy doctor taking my gallbladder out. Any herbal recommendations? So the first thing I want you to do is completely relearn about cholesterol and abandon the old narrative that cholesterol is bad for your body. A good place to start learning about this would be the Weston Price Foundation, a lot of their articles, and like looking at like, you know, what they call the blue zones, where like people in the world live forever. Fun fact, most of them have very high cholesterol. Your body needs cholesterol. But if you really want to, that's me, I'm not just like, I like to wave my hand, I'm going after flies. If you really want to work on like lowering some of your cholesterol without using dangerous things like statins, oh my God, please don't use statin drugs. They're like illegal in other countries, but the US keeps on giving them out. You could look into shiitake mushroom. It's a pretty good one for lowering cholesterol naturally, but I would do so with a grain of salt. Like, I don't mean like I would take salt with it, even though we need salt in our body. I just mean like I would learn a lot about cholesterol before you decide to lower it. Like, look at like, am I like freaking out? Like, are my numbers even that high? Like, can I like shift my cholesterol levels into like the happier cholesterols by including more healthy animal fats in my diet? Why was cholesterol demonized? Like, really learn this stuff, and then if you decide that you'd like to get them down just a little bit lower, consider working with shiitake mushroom. Okay, so let me see a few more. Dose for milky oat tincture during pregnancy and nursing. So again, there's no specific dose with tinctures that I can give out to say that will, you know, do a specific thing for your body. Of course, I have to say, because you're pregnant, always talk with a doctor or your gynecologist before you start using any sort of herbal supplement. But if I was personally pregnant and going to use milky oats to help support my nervous system function, I would maybe like start with like 2 or 3 drops and see how that felt, and then maybe work my way up. And I probably wouldn't go over more than like half a drop a day, which is, you know, usually about 20-25 drops. But just pay attention to how it makes your body feel. Okay, so let me see another question here. So this person says, hi April, red harvest mite larvae are eating my dog alive. Anything to get rid of them or reduce the itch? You know, for the itch, I would definitely consider making like a chamomile infused oil, or finding a chamomile balm, but please don't make it essential oils. That will just further cause irritation. You want to use like real chamomile. You could even do chamomile tea, like wash downs, like where you make a big pot of chamomile tea and then, like, you know, put it over your doggo when it's cool enough not to burn them, kind of like, or like an oatmeal bath type of situation. As far as the mites go, sometimes mites don't like oil, so you could try like oiling their body down, you know, but they're gonna get dirty really easy if you do that, because dirt sticks to that. You might get away with witch hazel, but sometimes it might be worth, if the infestation is bad enough, just going and getting like a chemical repellent. I know that chemicals aren't great for our bodies or our doggos' bodies, but sometimes you have to weigh the pros and cons, right? Like, if it's severe and you can't get it under control with like natural remedies, odds are good there's going to be more distress placed on your dog's body than by the mites than there are the chemical that could control them for a little while. Even if you just use it long enough to stop the infestation and get things under control. Okay, so let's see. Next question. Sometimes it puts them down into the answered questions, and sometimes it doesn't. Help with severe muscle and joint pain, please. Well, it depends on what's causing it. I would really love if you could like find out the why behind it. But you could start looking into something like linden infusion, and you can learn all about making nourishing herbal infusions, and particularly about linden as well individually, on my YouTube channel. I think on my Instagram, IGTV as well. I think I cross-posted there. It's really, really just an amazing ally at knocking down inflammation. In fact, linden has been studied and shown to reduce inflammation better than ibuprofen. But I would also consider pairing it with dark cherry juice, which is also really amazing for reducing inflammation. You can make something topical like the cayenne infused oil that I talked about to help with it. But I don't, like, even if these help, like, I'd really love for you to find out the why, right? Because while these herbs could help knock it back, but like, we don't want to use them like a band-aid. If there's something bigger going on, you could still use herbs to address that, but like having the why behind our symptoms can be really powerful, right? Because we can start connecting dots and seeing other things that we need to change. So let's see. Let's go way down for ones that I haven't. So this person said, I have antibodies that are attacking my thyroid. Which herbs could support the situation? So it sounds like you've got some autoimmune situation going on. And autoimmune is tricky because, right, like if you take something that like stimulates your immune system, like elderberry, for example, you could actually make things worse because you just gave your immune system an automatic weapon. You know, it's like, yes, we can now really attack. So I would actually consider looking into turkey tail mushroom. Turkey tail mushroom is a regulator. Like, she is amazing at going in there and being like, whoa, immune system, calm down, or this immune system is really low and needs to speed up. So she's a regulator, not a stimulator or a suppressor. I really love turkey tail mushroom. She's fantastic for people with autoimmune diseases. Of course, everybody's body responds differently. I like her as tea with barley-based miso. You could use soy, but I personally don't ingest soy in any form, even fermented. But I like the way it tastes with the miso added in as a tea, like boiling it like a broth. Sometimes I just add a turkey tail mushroom into my soup I'm cooking, like it's a bay leaf. I just toss it in there. You can take turkey tail mushroom tincture. You can get pills. I really love turkey tail mushroom. I've had cancer in the past, and it really helps your body recognize cancer cells. That's another thing that turkey tail is amazing at. She's also really good for digestive health. And she's got lots of prebiotics in her, which is what feeds the probiotics in your gut, right? So I would say look into turkey tail mushroom for helping to regulate some of that autoimmune situation. And I always mention to people with thyroid issues, whether their thyroid's being attacked or they've got just thyroid going on in general, to check out. My brain just blanked it because I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about saying multiple things at the same time, and it was like, does not compute, and like broke my brain. Oh, EBV. EBV's connection with the Epstein-Barr virus that most people have in their body, it's like no judgment, like 90% of the world population has it, is really linked to like fucking with your thyroid function. And it's definitely something to look into, that connection, where if we start like doing things to suppress the EBV in our body and like get our EBV under control, sometimes our thyroid function and things like that get better. So that's what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, Sally. Sally is my best doggo in the world. She is my best friend, and she is 11 years old, and I've had her since I helped her mother give birth to her. In fact, we used to call her Simple Sally back in the day because when she was born, she was not breathing. And it took me about 4, almost 5 minutes to get this little puppo breathing, and so I assumed there might be a little bit of brain damage, you know, because it happens, and so... But she's not. She's very smart. She's a very good doggo. Okay, so let me get another drink here. I'm actually going on vacation. First, I've never really been on a vacation before. I mean, I've been places a lot, but it's always like been as a homeless teenager. So I wasn't exactly like. You know, seeing the sights. So I've never been on vacation before, and I'm really excited. We leave this weekend to the coast, and I'm just kind of like, I was like, well, I'll do a live video before I go, so I don't leave everybody like completely hanging. Okay, let me scroll way down here. Let's see. I'm trying to find, they're not removing the ones that have been answered, so I'm having to go through them. Would you use lavender to make an infused oil, or would you do it the way you capture lilac scent? So you can use lavender to make an infused oil. What they're talking about is when you capture the scent of lilac, you have to use an animal fat. An enfleurage, which I probably did not say right, but whatever, because it isn't going to be caught any other way. But lavender can be caught any way you want to catch her, and I really like to make lavender infused oil because it's a fantastic way to catch a scent and not have to rely on dangerous essential oils for the smell. I use infused lavender oil to make my my deep slumber magnesium cream or body lotion that smells amazingly like lavender. And if you're like, I don't like the way lavender smells and like lotions or whatever because it's like really synthetic and it reminds me of like a bathroom cleaner or a potpourri, try working with real lavender. What you're smelling is volatile organic compounds that have been extracted through distillation or other chemical processes, and it doesn't smell real. It's too much. It's like meh, soap in your mouth. Real lavender imparts a beautiful balanced scent to infused oils. Okay, so I just named her Sally because that's just what I decided to name her. I used to call her Simple Sally because, well, I think it might have rhymed. I'm like, I'm going to have to call her Simple Sally because I thought she might have been slow from the lack of oxygen when she was born, but she wasn't. So her name is just Sally. Okay, so, all right. Let me scroll here again. Let me scroll deep into this stuff. Let me see. Can Oregon grapefruit temporarily make your gut health worse? That's a good question. So, what's probably happening is you're taking Oregon grapefruit and it's killing off some unpleasant bacteria that's in your digestive tract, and you're getting die-off symptoms. And it makes you feel like shit. And so it's easy to be like, this Oregon grape makes me feel worse digestively, right? But you also might consider, if that's not a factor, which, you know, it could be, have you had your gallbladder checked out? Sometimes when we stimulate digestion and our gallbladder isn't happy, it can make us feel worse, right? So like, and even though like Oregon grapefruit can help your gallbladder, if you are eating a lot of fats, which we need fats, but you know, without a gallbladder, or if your gallbladder is acting up, it can like trigger unpleasant issues because your gallbladder isn't functioning correctly. So that might be something to like consider and like have checked out. That's an interesting question. Somebody said, did something happen in the early 20th century where they declared certain plants invasive to conceal their medicine? No. I don't think they did. A lot of people are like, oh, you know, a plant's not invasive. That's just like, I don't know. But a plant can, as a person who's been around the land and plants a lot, a plant can be invasive. And invasive just means that it's not from the area. It doesn't even have to mean that it's not from the country. It can be from a different part of well, okay, so a good example here, where I'm at in Northeast Oregon, fucking manroot or wild cucumber has become invasive because it's not from here. It's from the eastern side of the state, and or the western side of the state, and it's native to there. But once it got here, it took off. It kills trees. It kills entire areas. So when they call it invasive, this very pretty much poisonous plant that has a root that's like massive, so you can't ever really get rid of it. It's really hard to kill, like really hard to kill. It's invasive because it's coming here and it's killing off a lot of the native plants. Like it's choking out elderberry trees, and it's killing, just like it's just taking over. Like it grows in these huge vines and it just chokes and kills these trees. Or something like wild mustard. Like wild mustard, like there's thousands of acres that are now covered in like millions probably that are covered in wild mustard, depending on where you're at, and it just chokes out all the other plants. So it's not that these plants might not have like herbal properties that we can use. It's just that they got introduced to a climate where the climate doesn't keep them in check, or there's not a predator here eating them, and so they have the capacity to grow at an astounding level and kill off like bioregional health for other plants. So yeah, they just take off, and it doesn't mean like Japanese knotweed is a good example. Wow, that one's really amazing for helping people heal from certain things. However, it's really killing a lot of areas. Like it just but I like invasive plants in the way that we don't have to be concerned if we're harvesting an ethical amount. If anything, it's unethical not to harvest too much. I eat wild, you know, garlic mustard that grows around here, you know, the mustard plants. And I also pull up amounts of it that I'll never eat and use. I kill that plant like crazy. I love her to death. She tastes delicious. But also, you're killing all the violets and everything else. So if I can rip up, you know, like a big patch, that's me helping my bioregion. So it really just depends. Okay. Let's see. Let me scroll way down, way down. What are some good ways to stimulate your body's elimination so that other systems fall into place? So they're asking me, what's a good way to help you take a shit? Or to pee and things like that. You know, that's our body's elimination process. We all do it. So some really interesting things here. I'll talk about some herbs, but I'm really into, like, I'm in love with my vagus nerve. And when I discover things and like things fall in place in my mind, I have to share them, right? And so one thing that your vagus nerve does out of all these things, basically this nerve, the vagus nerve actually means the wanderer in Latin. Like, it goes all through your body. It goes from your ears, your brain, all the way down into your heart and every little organ you have, into your digestive tract, all the way down into your cervix if you have one, or into your dick if you have one, whatever you got going on in there. It goes all the way through there. So when your digestive tract is fucked up and you're not going to the bathroom on a regular basis, there can be factors involved like gut health and things like that. But your vagal nerve tone, which is how well your vagal nerve is functioning, is directly correlated to not being able to like how well you go to the bathroom or how unwell you go to the bathroom, right? In fact, one of the things that they do to test like the vagal nerve function is like they tell you to eat some sunflower seeds and see how long it takes for you to see them in your shit, right? You're watching how long. Does it go too fast? Does it take too long? It's a good indicator that your vagus nerve is not happy. And you can do things to start toning that. Like I talked about my TENS machine. There's breath work. There's stress reduction. There's like eye movement stuff you can do, and like physical like tapping and things like that. There's a lot of information out there that's pretty easy to access about toning the vagus nerve, or vagal nerve as some people call it. And then beyond that, one thing that's really good is yellow dock root tincture. I really like that for stimulating going to the bathroom without it necessarily being like a laxative, right? You have to use it consistently. It's also good for digestion and helps with liver function, which would by proxy kick all the other systems online. And then of course, I really have been working with mallow root a lot with my husband, who suddenly developed like a flare up in his intestines and like a whole situation from stress, definitely. But we've been working with mallow root pretty consistently, and that one is really good at calming down inflammation if you're going to the bathroom too much, or if you're having spasmodic reactions and cramps. But also, if you're not going to the bathroom enough, it really helps support the mucous membrane that's through your entire digestive tract to go to the bathroom a little bit more smoothly, right? And then I would make sure that you're like eating a lot, and people are gonna come at me like this for crazy all the time. Are you eating enough healthy animal fats? Your digestive tract really needs those fats. It really needs fats to help move things along correctly. I go to the bathroom twice a day. We all shit. I shit twice a day. I go to the bathroom like right after I wake up, completely normal, and then usually within 20-30 minutes after I eat my breakfast, and it's completely normal, like clockwork. And the one thing that I've done to achieve that is working on my vagus nerve and, of course, eating all the healthy animal fats and things like that. Okay, so let me see. Let me scroll way down, because I want to make sure that I'm not just like, I want to make sure I'm answering a varied amount of questions. So this one says tallow versus lard versus lanolin and balms and salves. So for those of you that know, let me clarify what all three of those are. Tallow is the fat that we render from a red meat animal. It could be anything that's red meat. It could be from a goat. It could be from a cow. It could be from deer, elk, anything that's red meat. Lard comes from pigs and pigs only, and lanolin is from the fat that comes off of a sheep's wool. So in fact, one thing about lanolin that people don't understand is, you know, they don't like kill the animal usually. They don't kill the sheep to get the lanolin. It's a byproduct of them washing the wool to be able to use it, right? Because they want some of that lanolin on there is what makes the wool kind of water resistant. But if it's too much, it's like you'd be just like wearing this greasy shirt and nobody wants to put that on, right? So as far as using them in a salve, I love tallow. Everything I use is tallow, 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 because we are red meat animals as well. And so our body, ooh. You're all right, you're all right. You didn't actually fall, the phone did. Our body recognizes the fat because it's so similar to our own fat, and it craves it, and it drinks it in really quickly. As a lot of people can probably tell you here, when they use like my face creams and stuff that I use tallow in, it takes a little minute to go in, but like your skin is so soft, and it's not greasy unless you're putting way too much on, right? It absorbs really nicely. Now, lard isn't necessarily bad. People have been using lard for hundreds of years. But typically when I use a lard, it's something that I want to stay on my skin. So working with both of my grandmothers, I would watch when they would choose a fat. Most of them would really prefer like the deer fat, which would be the tallow, if they're wanting it to soak in for like something for sore muscles. But if you were working on something that maybe like you wanted to like heal an infection, or like just something that you want to stay on the skin, like a balm versus a salve, how a salve soaks in quick and a balm stays on the surface, you would want to use lard. Lard is really fantastic at staying on the skin because your body doesn't really recognize it as a similar fat and it doesn't absorb it as quickly. Now, it will absorb it eventually. It can still leave you with really soft skin. Your skin needs fat. But I like to use lard if I want it to like really stay topical. Now, lanolin, that's sticky. You can use lanolin, but it's something that you're probably inevitably going to either have to rub in all over or and like wait for it to soak in or wipe it off. It by proxy does not want to be absorbed. It's pretty, I'd say like hydrophobic, where it's like afraid of water and like your skin has natural water in it. And so it's really good if you want to cover something that's irritated. Like if you had a bad blister and you made some like yarrow infused lanolin, that would be fantastic for helping to give that blister the capacity to heal without being irritated again, like a Band-Aid over it, while also working in some of like the yarrow's ability to kill all gram-positive bacteria on contact, right? So that's the difference between the three and how I would use those. Okay, so let's see. It has been 2 hours, hasn't it? I'm just, my brain is a fucking monster. I'm different. There's my body, there's me, and then there's my neurodiversity. Like, my brain can just be like, yes, we will do all the psychomotor things and tell all the people. Okay, so let's scroll way down again. Picking a question. Hi, would love to know what you recommend for improving fertility and or supporting early pregnancy. Okay, so there are going to be some herbs I talk about, but the first thing is your body needs to feel nutritionally safe enough to conceive. You need extra resources. Not to say that we can't get pregnant when we're depleted. We can, but you need to come out of this pregnancy not a shell, right? Because now you have to take care of this little screaming pooping thing all the time, and so you need this to not deplete your body. So I would just say like all the healthy animal fats, all the healthy animal proteins, all the well-cooked veggies, so you're breaking down that cellular structure and getting rid of a lot of those oxalates that can be anti-nutritive. I would say to look into pro-metabolic eating. I would say to make sure that you're eating every 3 to 4 hours. I would say give your body a solid year of deep nourishment. And in that nourishment, make sure that you're including fruits and carbohydrates that, you know, like from like sweet potatoes and things like that. Definitely look into the pro-metabolic. And then from an herbal standpoint, red clover, all the nourishing herbal infusions like nettle, red clover, and then I would do a little bit of comfrey, and then linden isn't bad, but cycle through them. Cycle through them, meaning you're making like a quart, you're drinking it for a day or two, and then you make another one. And then you do that and make another one. And so you come back at the end of the week and start with the one you drank last week, right? And I think if you do that within a year, you'll probably see some big changes in your body. Not only your capacity to maybe conceive, but also your capacity to come through that pregnancy healthy, and have your body be open and receptive to it. Okay, so another drink here. Scroll way down. Way down. Somebody asked, this is an easy one, what oil combinations for serum or massages? Thank you so much, and love and light and blessings. I love avocado oil. I really love avocado oil. It absorbs rapidly. It's not a Pufa. It is just light. It doesn't have a whole lot of smell to it, and most people's skin really like it. And that's what I use in everything I make. Other than my castor oil and my sweet hair oils, which are made with almond oil, everything else is made with avocado oil. And I like the brand Chosen Foods. They're the only people that they've actually tested to make sure that it's pure avocado oil. And it's called Pressed and Organic. Okay. So somebody said, do you have any experience using jewelweed for poison ivy? and preferred extraction if it's alcohol or glycerin or oil. So fun fact, where I live in Northeast Oregon, we don't have poison ivy, we don't have poison oak, we don't really have poison sumac. It's just not a factor of here. However, I have helped a lot of people that run into it when they get into like Central Oregon and other places. Jewelweed works pretty well. The first thing I want you to do is make sure that you've neutralized the oils that are going on from anything poison that you've ran into. Oak, ivy, sumac, all those things have oils on their skin, and people make a mistake of trying to put something on it and then you rub it around and then it spreads in your body. A good way to neutralize that oil is vinegar mixed with dish soap, right? It's gonna like use a saponification action to like get that excess oil off. Make sure you're wearing gloves. After that, jewelweed's pretty good. Some people make like a water infusion, and then you can just soak in that in the bathtub. You can make an infused oil. I would probably not use a glycerin because that's not readily absorbed by your body. I would personally choose avocado oil. And then you could also consider doing things like chamomile. Chamomile is so underrated for her ability to stop itching in her tracks. In fact, there are studies that talk about chamomile being more efficient at calming down itching and irritation from a varying of things compared to cortisone. You know, and by the way, did you know that you can become topically addicted through steroids through anti-itch creams? It's crazy. Don't Google it if you're like weak of heart or don't want to freak yourself out, but have you ever looked at topical steroid withdrawal? People who get addicted to using cortisone and things like that for itching, or they just use it all the time and then they stop using it, like your skin will like fall off your body. Like you will have like sloughing skin. It's a horrendous thing, and they really should warn the public about it. I'm not saying that you can't use it now and then, but like check out chamomile instead. A chamomile tea for a bath would be fantastic. Make a nice strong brew to soak in. You can make a chamomile oil, a chamomile poultice as well, which is where you would make the tea and then wrap it up, the plant matter, in like a cloth and put it on it. That would be fantastic. So, okay, let me see. I think I'm going to answer like 3 or 4 more questions and then hop off of here. So somebody asked, I have oral texture issues. Can I put tooth powder on a cavity and let it sit instead of brushing? And they're talking about my tooth powder, but this could be in conjunction with any tooth powder you're using. You could do that. I would consider like maybe getting some yarrow tincture and making like a paste with it and packing it on there. Because I don't feel like the powder would stay in place. Right, like it would kind of like go elsewhere. But you could also, and if this would help you texturally, and I completely get it, I have sensory issues, we're a whole house of neurodiverse people, you might consider finding like a really high quality, like natural essential oil free toothpaste, like a paste, and then you might blend the powder with that paste, and if you can use toothpaste without it being a sensory problem, that might be a good way that you can use my tooth powder or any tooth powder that you made without it, like tricking your sensory stuff, right? If not, you can just put yarrow tincture on there. That would probably be a good help too. Okay, so a few more questions here. Herbs for breast pain and breast health, please. So I really like Comfrey for breast health, a Comfrey infused oil. It's really fantastic. She's really fantastic for getting like your lymphatic system up and moving. And then I would even add chickweed into that. Like if you were going to make an infused oil to use on there, chickweed is really great at going after like fibrous tissues and fibroids and things like that. And then you could even add in, let's say, something like St. John's wort or, come on brain, anything conifer, like spruce tree or pine. All this stuff is really fantastic for helping with reducing pain in breasts. And you could also do, let's see, cleavers is another good one, calendula. Anything that really helps with like lymphatic function is probably going to help with the painful breast and just supporting breast health. And when we were doing like daily breast massage after we get out of a shower and just put some breast massage oil we've made on there, I really believe that, I'm not saying that it's going to prevent breast cancer or anything like that,
But when we're in tune with this part of our body that we've been kind of like conditioned to neglect because it's just seen as a sexual object, right? We just push them up and out and they're for other people's pleasure. We tend to neglect it. And then like we're not paying attention to that area because it doesn't really exist for us. But if we make our breasts exist for us in that way of like we're taking care, we're less likely, I think, to end up with issues in the breasts. But even by proxy of just doing exams more often. Because how many times are you like at the OBGYN and they're like, when's the last time you did a breast exam? And you're like, and they're like, okay, so not for a long time. But imagine if you're like, I do one every morning after I get out of the shower to rub my breast massage oil on. Right? And so if something does pop up, like a growth or a tumor or cancer or something like that, you catch it really soon. You catch it really soon because you're paying attention to your body. And then you're more likely to survive whatever it is. Like early detection is key with breast cancer. Okay, so that's a good one I'll answer. Any recommendations for helping post-concussion syndrome, headache, fatigue, and brain fog? I am living in post-concussion syndrome. So I have found what's really working for me is working heavily with a lion's mane mushroom, asking people not to correct me when I get words incorrect or not to help me remember what I was trying to say unless I ask. I'm trying to get those neural pathways to like realign, making sure that I'm sleeping good, making sure that I'm stimulating my brain. There's a lot of new information out there about concussions. Remember they used to be like, lay down, don't do anything, take it easy, don't blah blah blah, but anything that you're comfortable with will actually help you because you need to be using those neural pathways in order to restore them. So sometimes like simple brain puzzles, you know, something you can do on your phone. Don't do it for hours, but maybe while you're going to the bathroom if you're looking at your phone anyways, or things like that. So I don't really like to consume Pufas, but I did find that cold pressed raw cod liver oil, and when it's not processed like that, it hasn't like disintegrated into a Pufa. I found that was really effective. Breath work really helped me. It's still continuing to help me, and just giving myself the grace to exist with it. A lot of people are like, oh, well, are you going to do your videos now because you like fuck up your words too much? I'm like, well, I already kind of did that to begin with, but I'm not going to let it stop me from trying. I think sometimes we go inward when we have like brain injuries and stuff like that, which is completely understandable and acceptable even. But there comes a point in time where like our own fear of functioning is like part of what could be holding us back, right? Like our own fear of trying or like stumbling over our words or forgetting things and how we might be perceived makes us kind of like, you know, not function as well as we could be, you know. So we have to really ask ourselves, is this from my traumatic brain injury? Yes. But am I feeling worse about it because I'm self-conscious, right? That's just kind of what I've been doing with myself anyhow. Okay. So, I did say lion's mane mushroom, right? Did I? See, concussion brain. If I didn't say lion's mane mushroom, I think I did, but if I didn't, I might have just talked about it internally to myself. That is definitely a huge one. Like, all things lion mane mushroom has been fantastic for me, clearly. Okay. Scrolling way down here. So anything you recommend for skin issues that cause splits, thinning, and tearing of the vaginal skin? So, my mom has what you have. I understand. A lot of that comes down to like checking out what your hormones are doing. Like, what can you do to support your hormone health so you have the capacity to like build up that structure and that mucous membrane. And really kind of looking at like the whole picture of your body versus just that one area. Kind of like how I talked about our skin like tells us what's going on internally. Like if we aren't well, our vagina isn't well. Like it's like telling us that it's not happy about something. It could be anything from like the way we're eating or what we're not eating. It could be our hormones. It could be stress, right? Like you better believe our vaginas experience stress. Like when we're not safe, like it's the difference between, I know this will be a little bit, you know, hard for some people to hear. It's a difference between like having sex when you want to and like how like wet you might be or aroused you might be versus like you're feeling obligated or like it's a fucked up situation and like how not wet you are. Your body will like directly respond to your stressors even if they're not sex related through your vagina. And so it's definitely something to look into. But I think it would be worth looking into like working with a functional medicine doctor about looking at like a deep dive into what your hormones are doing, and then seeing what you can do with like how you're eating to support those hormones. Okay, so let's see what else I can answer. I try to scroll to the ones that I haven't looked at. So this person said, can rose elixir or tincture lower your blood pressure and make you nauseous? It can. It's a very gentle one. So if somebody experienced like gross queasy feeling, like because their blood pressure went really low because they took a rose tincture, I would actually check out why your blood pressure was so low before you took it, if that makes sense. Like, it's such a gentle one that I wouldn't even really be concerned about like a cup of rose tea or something, even along like blood pressuring lowering medications. But if it made your blood pressure drop that far, I'd say it was probably lower than you might have realized, or something else is going on there. So it kind of might have been a hint for you of something to look at that might be going on like underneath the surface, like an underlying medical thing that you might not have known about. Or just something to consider, like asking yourself, like, why is my blood pressure so low? Like, am I doing something that's making it? Am I taking a medication that's causing it? Is it something to do with my diet or my lifestyle? Low blood pressure, it can be just as bad as high blood pressure. You want to kind of be in the middle there. Okay, so somebody asked, what would I suggest for chronic low iron? So I don't mean to laugh. It wasn't like I'm just like, there's a lot. So first of all, what's your diet like? Are you terrified of eating like animal meat? Like, do you not eat red meats? Like, are you not getting any heme iron, which only comes from hemoglobin, which means blood? Like, you want to raise your iron levels? I would really look into like eating a rare steak, liver, all things liver. I'd prefer you to eat real liver, but if you can't, taking desiccated liver pills would be fantastic. Sometimes, however, if you're already doing all that stuff and it's not helping with your iron levels, I would consider the fact that you might be deficient in trace copper. Sometimes when we don't have adequate copper levels in our body, which by the way, you don't go and eat copper. It comes from food. It's a really low level. If you don't get enough copper in your like micro and macronutrients, sometimes it's hard for your body to process iron. And so that's something you could look into. And then once you kind of look into the underlying stuff, one thing that might help alongside of making sure that you're getting heme iron, as well as seeing if you're getting any natural sources of copper in your diet, would be to look at yellow dock root tincture. She's really amazing at helping our liver function and helping kick out locked up iron that's in our liver. And sometimes it's locked up because we don't have copper. But you want to be careful because you don't want to like force your body to force out iron if you're not giving it. Like, if you're going to be taking yellow dock tincture to increase your iron, I'd love for you to give your body the iron to increase it, right? Like, so don't make it deplete it from its own source. Your liver will take iron from itself, you know. So that's one thing you could look into and things to consider for low iron levels. Let's see. Scrolling way down here. I wish it would take things off again like it had when I was answering them. So I have to scroll through all the things. So this one says, help with post-viral fatigue and nerve pain from EBV. I'm in pain every day for over 18 months. So I'm kind of curious about EBV causing you nerve pain. EBV doesn't typically attack our nerve ending cells, even though it kind of lives in them. Most herpes virus, don't be freaked out about the term herpes virus. The herpes virus is such a huge family of viruses. It's been around for like since humans have existed, and there's so many in that family. Everybody has some sort of herpes virus in them, and only one of the simplexes breaks out as like herpes or like a cold sore, right? There's a lot of them. So the Epstein-Barr virus is a herpes virus, also known as mono or the kissing disease. You don't have to get mono to get EBV. That's a huge misconception. Some people get mono and that's how they get EBV, but most of us are born with it. Like if your parents had EBV and your mom and got pregnant with you, you have EBV by proxy because you existed inside of her. So a lot of us are just born with it and it flares up. But it doesn't typically cause pain. It usually causes like extreme exhaustion and fatigue. And it fucks with our thyroid. There's huge links with Hashimoto's, adrenal exhaustion. It messes with our HPA axis and causes all kinds of issues. What typically causes pain in the herpes family is shingles. So I'd be curious if you've been screened for shingles yet, because that's more likely to cause nerve pain, muscle pain, and just external type pain like that. And shingles doesn't have to end up having a shingles rash. You can even get shingles internally. But I would say the same thing regardless if it's Epstein-Barr's or if it's shingles, because they're both in the herpes family. Same virus, different branch of the family. And so I would really, really look into Reishi mushroom, a self-heal herb. I would look into St. John's wort if you can use that internally. If you're having the nerve pain externally, which would be really common from shingles, I would use a St. John's wort infused oil topically. That really helps with the nerve ending and repressing those viruses. If you can't use St. John's wort internally, another thing to consider would be lemon balm. But go easy on the lemon balm, like cycle through it like 2 or 3 days on and then take off for 2 or 3 days, because if you use lemon balm too consistently, it can repress thyroid function, and we don't want to do that. But yeah, so there are a lot of things that we can do to really repress the viral like load. We can never get rid of these herpes viruses, but we can make them go dormant. And another thing that you have to ask yourself, if it's Epstein-Barr virus or if it's shingles, either or, what is going on in my life that's making my immune system so repressed that these opportunistic viruses have the capacity to reactivate, right? Because these are really kind of like, it sounds fucked up, but they're kind of like weak-ass viruses. And I don't mean that they're weak in the way that they can't make you sick and do things to you, but they literally typically can't come up and flare up unless something else is repressing our immune system. So like they can't get through the door unless something is opening the door from them. It's usually chronic stress. And I'm just going to say, I don't know how many people right now aren't stressed out, but it's something to address. It's something to look at, like, what am I doing to my body right now and my mental health? What am I doing to put in more than I'm taking out? How am I supporting myself? Am I on a restrictive diet? Am I doing something that's causing, like, full, like, lack of homeostasis? Like, is my metabolism freaked out? Am I, what's going on that's, like, allowing these viruses to come forward? Because we can use these herbs to help suppress these things, and it's definitely a big part of the puzzle, but we can't use them like Band-Aids. We have to say, okay, I'll use these in conjunction, but I'm going to look at these other factors that are going on. So, with that being said, I've been on for an hour and a half, almost two and a half hours, so 12 to 1, 1 to 2. I can count on my fingers. I've been on for 2.5 hours, so I think I'm going to call that definitely a limit. If I didn't answer your question, please don't take it personally. There's just a lot of questions, and when I talk, things come out a lot. I would say go check out my other Q&As that are saved in my Instagram bio. Most of those are not like me talking, they're me answering with text, so I answer a lot. Usually those have 100 questions answered. You are likely to find something similar answered in there. I'll be doing these Q&As off and on as I feel up to them. And so definitely look for those. I may or may not begin doing them on YouTube or Facebook, depending on where you're watching. I'm very familiar with the Instagram platform, and I just kind of like my mass following is here. But I'll probably start announcing them over there if I do plan them a day or so before. I like to be sporadic. But I really appreciate you being here with me. And if you watched this whole time, you're a trooper. I will be saving this video, clearly, if you're rewatching. You know that, but the people that are watching right now, you can go back, rewatch, and it will stay up on my wall indefinitely. So I'm going to hop off of here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.